Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another Deepest Law. It is reviewing Adam Curtis once again for the 55th time, and for the 6th time, I think, welcoming Nick Dixon back to try to get through hypernormalization. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. As I've sort of said to you off air, you've sort of ruined my life in many ways, but I'm here dedicating far too much time to this, and I've neglected other things just for the pure love of it, the pure love of the game.
Love of the game, yeah.
It's good to be here. And I want to finish it now.
And this week, I gave you a formal invitation, and if you notice, I didn't do my usual thing of saying how you're doing, Simon, and waiting to bring you in. I introduced straight away.
Thanks for that. Yeah,
in a strange break with tradition.
You're treating me almost like a normal person.
It's incredible. I'm trying to treat you like a kind of star player, like Paul Ince in Manchester United, circa 1996. Nick,
I see it as the basics, really. I mean, not introducing someone for 3 or 4 minutes is usually like that's frowned upon. But you know, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the professional introduction.
Well, I mean, I do a lot of big time things. Like, for example, I had Bronze Age Pervert on and didn't put him in the title.
Nice.
Or, I mean, I have always done that.
You mock people.
Nobody's bigger than the channel, right?
Yeah, right.
Nobody's bigger than the club.
You get their name wrong on purpose. And then
my name is the name on the marquee, right? I learned these things from Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan.
Right. You're the draw. Exactly.
I'm the draw.
You do what Stone Cold did. Quit completely because he didn't respect your pulling power.
Yeah, I've always done that. It doesn't matter how big the guest is; they don't get their name in the title. What a little pro wrestling thing. Anyway, Simon, I am very pleased today because one, AAA was back to school, but two, and even more importantly, the weather has just gone. Bang! Summer's over. It's now the autumn. It's freezing. It's raining.
Seething.
The leaves have just gone. Like it literally happened overnight. It was summer one day, and then literally the next day, all the leaves are red and yellow and falling, and it was raining.
Boo.
And it was like, it's September. Business as usual is back. School is back. Summer's over, dweebs. I fucking love it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. It's horrible. They're all there. They're all there in the comments. They're all crowing about it. I just love it. Shut down summer. Bang on the 1st of September. We are so back. I hate them.
I love it. I'm Team Autumn as well. Although somehow it's still boiling in the room I'm in now. I don't understand that. But I'm Team Autumn all the way. Summer's for degenerates.
You a scarf man? Scarf and a kind of long coat or a...
Well, it's nowhere near that level yet. I'm from the north, Simon, remember.
That's true.
Having spent a lot of time poncing about different campuses in my lifetime, I have lost probably more scarves than people own. Right? It was always one of those things that it's kind of like part of the academic get-up that you wear a scarf. But I don't think I've ever had a scarf that I don't then immediately lose within 2 days. Like, you just forget, like you do something, you give a lesson, or you go to something, a meeting or whatever, and you end up leaving the scarf on the chair. I'm like that with gloves too. I can just never remember those two things, gloves and scarves, because you don't usually have them.
So what you're saying is the advantage of being cancelled is you've been keeping and retaining a lot more scarves.
Yeah, I've now got one scarf that I've had for many years because I just don't wear it. There's no need to, because I'm not poncing around campuses. Well, occasionally I do ponce around campuses still, but that was in the summer. So, anything else, friends?
Horus needs to be introduced.
Oh yes, I forgot. Yeah. Also, Horus.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's fine. I'm a little ashamed at the moment because I haven't really created any content of my own recently, but I'm glad that people enjoy these.
I'm trying to think of a good analogy now. If he's Paul Ince in 1996, you're like Chris Casper.
Well,
sorry,
you don't have to have a go at me about it. Like, fucking hell. What? I don't even know who Chris Casper is either.
Exactly. Nobody knows who Chris Casper is. I do.
I'm glad you brought it around to football already, because that's what I bring to these streams. By the way, I'm actually really injured today from football. Last night I played football, and I don't know if you're really into the stats these days, AA, but the XG, which is the expected goals. That's the big thing now, the XG. I looked at the teams. My brother normally picks the teams, but he's got a back injury, so he's not picking them. So another lad picked the teams, and I looked at them. I was like, their XG is way above ours. They're going to score way more than us because they just have far more goal scorers. I said it's 4-1 in goal scorers, and then they won 4-1, and the only one we scored was me. So I was like, the XG was way off. So it was miserable. Anyway, I know this is what people come for.
Sorry, what is that in fantasy football or something?
No, five-a-side. We play actual physical five-a-side. That's why my foot and my groin hurting today. Honestly,
but the XG thing was in your head, though, right?
It was in my head. I was looking at it going, they've got... Because what I do is, if I ever do the teams, the problem is I don't do the teams because I feel so guilty if we win because of my sort of Protestant, my sort of Christian guilt. I just feel guilty anyway, for whatever reason. So I can't pick the teams. But when someone else picks them, they get it wrong because you've got to take into account running stats, goals, and maybe passing ability. And sort of there's also sort of another category I sort of think of as like winners. There are certain players that seem to just win quite a lot and others that don't win as much, even if they seem like they're good. So their goal scoring was just too good last night. And it was clear from the teams we were never going to have a chance. Then you have to play anyway. It's quite grim. It's like this stream. You have to see it out anyway.
Unfortunately, I have also got a bad back, so I've not been in the gym past 2 days. I've had to cancel it was AAA's first day back at school. So the missus were like, don't go in this morning. So I cancelled that one. And the one yesterday, my back was just... I may have to stop doing it. It's too strenuous for me. My back is just... I'm basically... If I was in Football Manager, I'd have INJ next to me in the red, you know.
Yeah. What happened to pickleball?
I still play that every Monday. And in fact, playing pickleball on Monday, my back was hurting so much after that I couldn't make it to the Tuesday morning. I still got up. I was still up at like crack of dawn. I was like, what am I going to do now? I know. I'll find more 80s synth pop bangers.
What kind of back trouble do you have? Is it like is it injured or what?
I tell you, a couple of years back, quite a few years ago now, the missus had a really old television, like the old, big, bulky TVs. And I basically hurt my back trying to move that. Like we say, oh, well, I can do it. Whatever. I don't need any help. And ever since then, on and off again, whenever I do anything physical, really, I get bad back. So, yeah.
Past a certain age, it's just hell. It's just
little things can trigger it. Like AAA got a bike for last Christmas, and trying to be on, just leaning down to steady the bike on the handlebars is enough, basically, to set off my bad back. So going to high intensity training and doing rows and things and so on is probably not the best idea.
What about seeing a physiotherapist for a little while before doing loads of gym work? Building up your muscles is good for your health in general, isn't it? But still, if you've got an injury before you do so, you can make it work.
Yeah, well, I've never kind of got a diagnosis or anything. Maybe.
It's just getting old.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel bad for talking about getting old in football, but I'm a bit complacent because the comments were so good last time. I saw a couple of really nice comments, and then I stopped reading after 2, just in case there are any bad ones. But I feel like I've got complacent there with my football chat. But I just want to thank everyone for the great comments.
Getting old happens later now. Old is like 80 now rather than 70. So getting old starts later, So you're getting old from 50 rather than 40 now. So Simon, sorry to cut off. The cut off went already, but the rest of us, we've still got a few sort of half exciting years of.
We're in our prime.
Yeah, just very slowly declining health, and it's
the unjust pains you get when you get old. You get out of bed on a morning, and you suddenly get a twinge of something, and you think, how can that be fair? I've been lying in a relaxed position in bed. I've got up, and suddenly my knee is screaming. and it's just unfair.
Yeah, I had it running down the steps for the tube while holding my rucksack at a weird angle, and suddenly my back had twinged. This was just the other day. I've had to miss 3 training sessions. It just twinged out of place, like you say, for basically nothing.
Yeah. Sucks. Anyway, I'll be back at it, and unfortunately, I can't go next week either, due to stuff I have to do. Basically, Mrs. going away for a while, so I am on school duty for a whole week. How am I going to do that? I don't know. Anyway, let's get on with it.
Let's finish it.
So just before we get going, I'll remind people, pick up courses at the Academic Agency, Trivium, Foundations of Research, so many great courses. Shakespeare, of course, buy it now. Nick, any big interviews or anything you want to promote?
Well, I'll plug a couple of things. I want to plug AA's courses because I've done them. They are very good, and you should do them. And also, people who diss. I don't want to be too brown nosing here, but people who diss AA online, I always think, have they actually read the books though? At least read the books, and then have some sort of informed opinion. As for me, well, I've got I've got an interview with an academic agent that was just out. Check that out. So that was out on Monday. That's doing pretty well. Of course, we've got the David Starkey one still doing very well. That's up to 349,000. That's ridiculous. That's on Nick Dixon, my YouTube channel. NickDixon.net is a Substack. Also, many people loving that. And I think that's it. Oh, and I've got a podcast out later today. Of course, I always do my topical podcast on a Wednesday just to make this the most grueling possible day of content.
Do you know what I'm a little upset about with your interview, right?
Yeah.
With me. You've put that picture, that kind of official picture I've got from
the scowling picture.
I think it's my University of Buckingham profile or whatever, right?
And not me, my producer, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, whatever. And I get it, right? That's the picture that's available of me, easily. It used to, for ages, it was the one of me from like 10 years ago, which was actually just taken one day when I came back. I needed a picture for something. And I just come back from work, and she was like,
"We all use the youthful picture." I mean, look.
Well, it's just the one that's online, right? And then and people just copy that, and then it gets endlessly reproduced.
Yeah.
But in my current, like, since I've been doing like the 2-camera videos, in my mind, I've set it up like. Did you ever play Street Fighter 2 or Soul Calibur or something like that?
Street Fighter 2, yeah.
Right, so in Street Fighter, where if you press a different button,
you got different costumes.
You've got you can have like Ryu in the white or Ryu in the blue, or right. So I wanted to set it up so I've got 4 different costumes, and that's it. So it's like if you press Light Punch, you just get the Miami Vice. If you get right, and then I've got I've got the robe that I wear occasionally, the cloak thing, the smoking jacket, and the hat, the kind of Crocodile Dundee hat. Which is more like a special. That's more if you kind of, there's one which is the standard, 2 which is if you press a button by mistake, you get, Have you ever got like yellow costume Ryu, and you still play on because you pressed the button by mistake, and then you've got the special one you have to put the combination in. And in my mind, I've set it up like that, but obviously that interview going out with me in that other suit, that's not one of the 4. So
but do you have those in high res? Because this is all that people are looking for. So sometimes I do the pics, but I do have my guy, and he does them. And actually, he did that on, and I wanted to change something on it, but he buggered off to Amsterdam. So it's quite frustrating. But because actually the pic didn't score that well either on the software. My title did, which I came up with completely organically because I'm just talented. But the problem is you need them in HD. That's your problem, or they can't really be used. But yeah, it'd be nice to use a different pic. But I don't know. We could do a screenshot from your videos, I suppose. But
yeah, I suppose. Horace, anything you want
to promote? No, nothing from me at the moment, thank you. But I got to give props to Carl Benjamin, who I've slagged off various times on Twitter. But he managed to get James Lindsay to basically admit that it is all about just promoting Israel, the woke right thing. And I thought that was quite impressive.
Yeah, I did a video on Monday.
Yeah,
cool. I can't remember what it's called now, but
and those guys they specialize in evasion, and he just pierced through it, so that was good. Well done.
That was good. I also just say, if you haven't watched it yet, the video I did this morning, which is called the Sloppinator. Call it. You like this, Nick? Right. My title was something like, I can't remember. It's something really anodyne. Sloppinator exposed. the dark secret behind Operation Raise the Colors.
But yeah, that's not bad, but you can't be a slave to the sloppinator, right? So the other day you had a really good title and then you changed it to some total slop. And I noticed you changed it again. But sometimes you just got to back yourself. You got to back yourself because my Starkey one is completely organic, straight from the brain of ND, and that's on 349,000 as we speak.
What I've done now is I've tried to preempt it by coming up with my own titles, which are pre-slopped, right? But they're
You've become slop. You've become embodying slop.
Well, next week, tomorrow, I've got a video called "How My Hatred," capital letters, for Madonna sparked a new love, capital letters, of 80s music. Sloppinator rating,
brackets.
95, ladies and gentlemen.
Really?
95.
Brackets and why it matters. No, I've got some 97s on there. 97 is my minimum now. Not to try and mug you, but 97 should.
Wow, that was my Starling one got something like 97.
But do you not ever just overrule it and say, "Hang on, that's nonsense"? Because it does come up with nonsense.
Yeah, I keep on. Sometimes I don't like what they come up with, so I have to play it. It's like kind of It's like on a game where you're trying to do a re-roll. Remember on D&D, you try to re-roll. You need to re-roll it until you get a good one. So sometimes it takes 10 minutes or so. And in fact, people have started complaining about it. So next week, I've got an entire video on exactly this topic, Nick. Which I feel like it was made just for you. Because you love the kind of the internal how to do YouTube stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm interested in that stuff because people don't talk about it. And it's what execution is a huge amount of it. Some people are all execution, you might have noticed, and that's all they have, and they get massive numbers, and it's just total slot. But you've got to have a little bit of both. And some people have no execution at all.
So my current thing is the meta is slop. So you need the slop as the bait, but then I deliver anti-slop as the hook.
Mm-hmm. It's not a bad
slop bait, anti-slop hook, right? So it's kind of like, so there's often a disconnect between the title and what they're actually getting. But of course, lazy people say, "Oh, it's sloppy" because of the title. I'm like, no, you've got to listen. Like, I'm not delivering. Literally, in the past couple of weeks, I've advocated banning 4chan, counter signal the flag protest, explain why protests don't work, and various and exposed the ops behind the raise the colors bullshit, and that's not slop. And although the titles are slop, so that whole video will explain the whole process.
Is clickbait titling consistent with Dogma 3? I just have to ask.
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
It's a clickbait title with Dogma 3 aesthetics. So.
Yeah, and if anyone sees me doing slop, that is my producer Roy. On the clips, he does go a bit slop. I've just let him have total autonomy on that because I can't control everything, and they can get quite sloppish, definitely. If I've come up with a title, you won't see slop, but if he comes up with it, I don't know. His slop standards aren't as quite as rigorous as mine.
Right, look at it. Right, look at the time where I overruled the Sloppinator. A brief history of British censorship: 8.9 thousand. Now that is shit. That's shocking. That is a shocking number for this channel. Okay, anything below 10 is poor. Right, anything below 10 is a bomb.
I can see top cigar tips every beginner needs is struggling.
Now that was put out. That is put out as a kind of niche thing. Okay. I may have other purposes for putting out those videos once in a while, Nick.
Okay.
All right. Other purposes.
Is the one about censorship, like, is it that YouTube doesn't serve it to people or that people don't click on it? Because that was a really good one.
So this is a kind of a chicken and egg thing, right? So the algo favors the slop title, which actually maximizes the potential of people actually seeing it. But then, even if they do see it, even if they do see that video, people are still less likely to click if it's not a slop title. So you can see directly, right? A brief history of British censorship did half the numbers of Why I Hate Madonna. As an example,
it really, right? It makes you hate the cretinous public, doesn't it?
I mean the public are fucking pigs. They're stupid.
It's also a lot longer, but yeah, I'm trying to be.
Yeah, but well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, numbers don't.
No, that shouldn't matter.
You know,
You're right, because my Starkey one's 40 minutes. That's
yeah,
my
the
best
Stalin
one.
video was 2.5 hours long.
Right,
I've got
right. Yeah,
30,
you're right.
You know,
You're right.
so
I like is written on the cusp of a revolution, because that's kind of it's sort of decent and has a slop aspect, but it's still quite solid. You know what I mean? It's not too sloppy.
yeah.
I like that kind of thing.
Open question though, so the answer is no.
Yeah, exactly. A closed question means no, always. Yeah.
Closed question. Okay, yeah.
Open
But I said to
question,
you, sorry,
what?
I
Go on.
said to you though, you've got a unique, well, it seems fairly unique kind of get out, which is you can say it's all ironic, but still do it. You're like,
Exactly.
I'm using these slop titles ironically. How could I possibly mean this while you just rake in the cash? Do you know what I mean? Like, all irony, guys. That's what I think you've managed to do there. It was kind of genius, because you call it.
I am the 41st best YouTuber, Nick.
Yeah. You've mastered that irony, but you're still getting the money. Whereas most people do it just is actual slop, but you've gone like, no, it's ironic slop. Quite
Meta
clever.
slop.
I just want to flag that I noticed hidden pop culture references are also part of Dogma 3. I noticed in your condemnation of marching, you used the phrase marching up and down the square. And as Gen X, I recognize that as a Monty Python catchphrase from The Meaning of Life, and I claim my cream bun.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that was a little Easter egg there for the Gen
There you
X,
go.
for the boomers and Gen Xers in the crowd.
Was there a Xennial reference in there as well that would only have been picked up?
Well, there was Father Ted on the front cover.
Oh.
Down with all this, that was the Father Ted reference. And that was the day that Graham Linehan was arrested, so it ended up being quite a topical thumbnail.
Oh
yeah, that was ridiculous.
We've got to say something about that. I mean,
I'm going to talk about that on my other podcast, but yeah, that was absolutely. Do you know what's really ridiculous about that is as well as the government does this classic thing of they're like, oh yeah, it does seem inappropriate, and West Streeting's like, yeah, we know we're not in favor of this. Like, why do you keep doing it then? It's like, you're the government. Oh yeah, this is bad. It's like, yeah, but you're doing it.
No, this is the thing, right? This is where I never go full heel. So I obviously said, he's an internationally famous thing. It's ridiculous the government would do this, which is a very kind of straight bat. Every once in a while, you got a straight bat it. But my buddy Scrump and Evelyn, who everybody hates, their commitment to being full heels is ridiculous. Because when everybody else was condemning that, they're on my timeline saying, fucking arrest him. He's just a Zionist slop merchant, based armor, arrest him. It's just like,
but the question,
their commitment is ridiculous.
If they're arresting him for being a liberal, then that would be one thing.
Is there a question at the root of it, though? Is the minority less organized if they're not coordinating across to the non-managerial elite in the police? Yeah, because
it's kind of
coordination's breaking down. I mean, it's kind of a cack-handed move, it seems.
Well, and then they came out and said, "Oh, we shouldn't be doing this." The government.
No, but that's what they always do. I just think they're lying. They're the ones doing it. Their organizations are doing it. But they go, "Oh yeah," they use the language of the old world, the relatively sane '90s world, and they say, "Oh yeah." I mean, Starmer doesn't say to Trump, "Oh, we just arrested a comedy writer. It's absolutely brilliant." He's not going to say that, is he? He says, "Oh, it's terrible. We're proud of our free speech tradition," because they're repeating the mantras of the old liberal order, but while they're doing this post-liberal thing of just arresting people for tweets. But they start to pretend, because they know that's evil. They pretend with the old rhetoric, right? That's my take on it.
Well, was the tweets that he was arrested for, did he do them while he was out of the country? Or was it long before?
I think he
No,
did.
he's been to Arizona or somewhere like that.
Yeah, he's in Arizona with Andrew. They're all in Arizona. And it's not like... See, the problem is all my friends get arrested at the airport now, but that's usually because they've been to some country, like Callum's been to Russia or something. But Graham, it wasn't really because of that. It's because that was an opportunity because he's back in England. That he'd probably been arrested in England anyway, but the airport is a sort of weak point. That's why I've not left the country since 2016. As soon as I haven't left since about 2017. But as soon as they brought in the vaccine passports in 2020, that whole idea, I was like, right, I just will never travel again, and I've stuck to it on principle.
Well, the counter-terrorism police at the airports have just got way more power. Like, they can just force you to give up your passwords and stuff. I don't even know how that works. Like,
they've got big guns, and yes, they can come up and say, that helps. But then they say to you, we need your phone, and if you don't let us, then you are running afoul of the terrorism.
But you're charged with that. Yeah, you're charged with a crime.
Immediately.
It's a Blair law called the Counter-Terrorism Act 2000, I think. And if you're ever in that situation, the rules are reversed, right? So normally you've got the right to remain silent, blah, 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 blah. In this scenario, you are obliged to answer, and if you don't, the fact that you don't will be held against you. Right, so it's the normal laws are actually reversed. So it is actually a Schmittian situation. If you're not kind of mentally cool and prepared for that sort of thing, it could shake some people up.
Do you know what you should do? Do you know what one move is bring a burner phone away with you, right, on holiday. But the absolute elite move is have a different phone with a totally different profile where you just love the regime, and all your tweets are like, "Isn't Starmer doing a cracking job?" And then you say, "Yeah, you can look at my phone," and you've got like text to people about why Starmer's great.
Yeah, or even better, when you get in there, say to them, "Look, I actually really support Tony Blair, and look, I got a long history of saying that online."
Yes, right. You could actually deliver that,
which may or may not have happened.
And they'll be like, yeah, but don't you also support Wes Streeting, who just tried to distance themselves from us?
You'd be like, don't you also call him the Dark Lord? But Lord. But dark. That could be a problem.
All right, let's get on with hypernormalization then. People in the chat will make, have they started, or is this still banter? Or the thing is, it's not like a start. It's not like we start the show and then there's an actual start. It's like, you ever watching Ghostbusters where he says he doesn't have clean clothes or dirty clothes, just gradients in between. It's not like there's not like a start. There's just a kind of gradients of different, it
never starts. And one thing I've noticed about it never ends.
Exactly. Kind of, yeah. I think Curtis would like that though, wouldn't he, Simon?
Absolutely.
Liminality of it all.
That's it.
They thought they would start, but this was a fantasy. Yeah, we never start.
What other show do you have a Chris Casper reference in the first 5 minutes where basically nobody in the chat or on the panel knows who Chris Casper is?
I know Chris Casper.
Apart from Nick, of course. And I still haven't watched that comedian Norm. I want to do my homework and watch Norm Macdonald so I can, share references with you.
You haven't watched Norm Macdonald?
I still haven't done it. No. You need to give me like one show of his to watch, so I've got, at least I can kind of hang with the kids.
Okay.
Bashar Assad was never supposed to have been president. It was always going to have been his elder brother, Basil. But then Basil had died in a car crash.
I remember this from last week. Basil. Basil Assad.
It's worth it again.
So now, Bashar took over the giant palace that his father had built above Damascus. Up to this point, Bashar had not been interested in politics. He was fascinated by computers. He founded the Syrian Computer Society and brought the internet to the country. His favourite band was the Electric Light Orchestra. But now he was president. And he set out to attack America.
Pause. No, he didn't. What the fuck does that mean? He set out to attack America. No, he didn't. No, he didn't at all. They set out to attack him. But he took over in the 2000s decade? When did Syria ever attack it? They didn't. Did they even attack Israel? Let alone what bullshit?
I think currently. The idea that he is backing jihadi groups to do suicide.
I think someone's on mute, or
you can hear me.
I
right?
just wanted to pause to say bullshit, and then maybe I've lost you guys.
Horus. I don't think Horus can hear me. I think what they're talking about is what Curtis is talking about is Syria backing jihadi groups who are then going to be used as proxies against American forces, something like this.
Yeah, I'm just impressed with Horus's dedication to saying Adam Curtis is shit. Well, like 18 billion hours into this series, he's still like, don't care for this. Okay, Horus is gone.
Maybe I'll remove him. You can come back in.
Mm-hmm. Bashar Assad was convinced that the invasion of Iraq was just the first step of a plot by the Western powers to take over the whole of the Middle East.
Correct.
He knew that the invasion had outraged many of the radical Islamists in Syria, and what they most wanted to do was to go to Iraq and kill Americans. So Bashar instructed the Syrian intelligence services to help them do this. Syrian agents set up a...
Can you hear me now, Horace?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Just
Yeah. I was just saying before you dropped out that I think what Curtis is getting at is that Syria backed jihadi militia groups against the Americans to do suicide bombings, etc. Something like this.
Okay, what, in Israel? In Iraq? Oh, they mean in Iraq, right?
Yeah, just American troops in the region, I think.
Oh, so he's talking about that. Okay, that spell where America was trying to, like it went on for ages, didn't it? They invaded in 2003, and then for like God knows, like 10 years afterwards, they're trying to bring Iraq into some sort of order. And he was backing some of the Islamist groups,
Yeah,
because to frustrate American control of Iraq. Oh, sorry, in that situation, fuck America. Anyway, sorry.
pipeline that began to feed thousands of militants across the border and into the heart of the insurgency. And it grew. Within a year, almost all the foreign fighters from across the world were coming through Syria. And they brought suicide bombing with them. The Americans estimated that 90% of the suicide bombers in Iraq were foreign fighters. But it began to run out of control. Most of the jihadists had joined the group Al-Qaeda in Iraq. But then...
if I was a jihadi, I'd spend literally all my time trying to devise tactics that did not involve suicide. Because it just strikes me as stupid. Like, there must be a better way to deliver a bomb than suicide. No?
I can understand it for like in Israel, it's been used by Hamas and probably Islamic Jihad to they have a civilian looking person, often a woman, right, on a bus with bombs attached to them inconspicuously, and they blow up on a bus and they manage to kill 20. What that does for their cause, killing 20 Israeli civilians, I have no idea, but it does at least achieve what they want to, bizarrely. So I can see how it's a good tactic for murdering people, but in war, how? Like you have to run into the enemy base as fast as you can.
I just can't get my head the Monty Python we talked about. It's the suicide front. Oh, brilliant.
One thing I'll say about it, and I probably should have said this in the last episode, when they were justifying it, it just struck me as the ultimate Schmittian exception for Schmidt fans in the chat. Actually, this is why suicide bombing is great and always has been, and in fact is ordained by our God. I just think that's like the ultimate. You know what I mean? Like, we've decided we're going to do this, and now we'll justify it after the fact. And you can justify anything. If you can justify that, it's sort of ultimate proof of elite theory, right?
Yeah, and the extent to which that has been done through history, and always kind of, says here in this book, by the way, that this was ordained by God. Oh, right, okay then. It says here in this book that we're the chosen ones. Oh, right, all right there, brilliant. And then people actually believe it as well.
Who was it that had that really bonkers? Was it J.E. Vance?
I don't know what the religion is. They do it all the time.
Yeah. Someone had that. It was Ted Cruz, wasn't it? Remember Ted Cruz versus Tucker Carlson? And Cruz was like, well, it says in the Bible that Israel's amazing. And Tucker was going, what are you talking about? Do you remember? It justified his Zionism because of a passage in the Bible.
Yeah.
That was all that thing of seeding amongst loads of Christian Americans, the idea that they are obliged by God to support Israel. That was seeded by literally putting out a new version of the Bible, right? Like 100 years ago, I think.
Schofield?
The Schofield Bible. I don't know much about the story, but I know that Samuel Untermeyer had a lot to do with it, and he's a character worth looking into. But yeah, the Schofield Bible was put out for that purpose, among others. I mean, I think it was also, a theological debate as well. But yeah, it was put out to seed Israelophilia among American Christians a long time ago as well.
I mean, it does get mental. It does get crazy though. We talked. I'm sure we talked on a previous stream about the Ayatollah, Khomeini, found the Islamic justification for sex operations. According to the Quran, this is cool because it's not gay. If you do a sex change, and that's not haram by order of the Ayatollah. You know, and he signed a what do they call it, fatwa or whatever, saying, yeah, this is cool.
Sorry, are you saying that the Ayatollah Khomeini's career was actually something like Dog Day Afternoon? Like it was actually all just about getting his girlfriend, his wife, so-called.
When Khomeini was in exile in France, this this man who wanted to become a woman, right, went to see him and said, look, if you ever get to power, I want to have a sex change in Iran, right? And he's like, yeah, you've got my word. If I ever become the leader of Iran, you can have a sex change. And then he became the leader of Iran, and he went to him and said, remember what you said? And he's like, yeah, here's the fatwa. Mohammed said it's fine. Go on. Yeah, and to this day, that is the basis. That is the basis on sex change operations in Iran. If you're gay, you'll get stoned. Apparently, you know, if they catch you holding hands with a boy or whatever, and you're a boy, you'll be stoned.
I see it.
If you have a sex change, that's cool. You can actually get married and, you know, have as much sex as you want.
There's a certain honesty about just good old fashioned, you know. I'm not gonna use crude terms, but just like being gay, there's a certain, you know where you stand. You know what they're after, but trannies is different. Sorry, I shouldn't even use that word. You get banned off the YouTube. But.
What I think is the kind of justification of the Ayatollah or what the Islamic regime is thinking is that the normative sex binary of male and female norms, of marriage norms, of gender norms, is more important to uphold than the deviation of the same sex. So better, like, if you're going to be gay, if one of you is a man and one of you is a woman, it's still basically in the trad form. That's kind of what the Ayatollah is trying to say. You know, you can argue it different ways, I guess, but that is the logic of it. So yeah,
I love the idea that the whole revolution was just because Khomeini had a secret wife, so-called, who was just a bloke.
Yeah,
and they both believed it was a woman, and it's just all about that. It was nothing to do with religion whatsoever.
Got in immediately, Attica. You know?
Yeah.
All right, let's carry on.
And killing Shiites in an attempt to create a civil war. And the force that had originally been invented by the Shiites, suicide bombing, now returned and started to kill them.
Then this. A moment of silence before people realised what was happening.
A few seconds ago, we just had repeated explosions in the street below me. People are now fleeing in terror from the central square around the mosque. This is what everybody feared. We just heard another explosion in the distance, that somebody would try to target this religious festival to try to bring about a sectarian conflict in Iraq.
Anyway, in the interests of the British state, I should say that the Academic Agent channel absolutely affirms the rights of men who identify as women to become women, and vice versa. And that Graham Linehan, he's a transphobe, and he's got what's coming to him. Is that what we're meant to say? We're going to affirm the mantra. Yeah,
that's going to really help you at the airport.
Yeah. I'm sorry for my choice of words.
I think you had to say true in this day and age.
Sorry, and by the way,
right, yeah.
This was that was James Corden's early work, by the way. That reporter, did you notice? I should have said it at the time when he was on screen, but I didn't think it was strong enough to warrant a pause.
He should go back to news. He was rubbish at comedy. This what we're seeing here. This is like what was on the news every day for years and years and years. Just another bombing, another 30 people murdered and stuff like in Iraq. It was just horrible. So my earlier comments sort of like downplaying what he said about Bashar al-Assad. If Assad was driving this, then yeah, he's a piece of shit. But yeah, I objected to the idea that it wasn't attacking America; it was attacking America in Iraq. That's a whole different thing.
That incident where that was in 2003, and there were actually there were several. Oh, how many suicide bombers there were? There were 6 of them, as you said. There were 6 of them. 2 of them were Syrians. It was.
It was appalling. It was almost all just ordinary people being murdered by these guys. So it was terrible. You know. But,
Some of my best friends are trans. Yeah.
You mean
Just carry
Eva?
on. Yeah, well, I guess I can say that. See, not a transphobe after all. And some of my best friends are gay as well. Not that there's anything wrong with that. All my favorite musicians are. In fact, I discovered that a lot of 80s artists who you think are gay are not gay. Like I was gobsmacked last night to discover that Alison Moyer is not a lesbian. Like, what the hell? How can she not be? Annie Lennox.
I never thought she was.
Come on, look at her. She's butch as hell.
Nah, she's just.
You've just got that lesbian look thing, haven't you? Still,
there was a lot of lesbian look in the 80s. Lennox, Moyer.
Lennox. I'll give you.
Lacey from Cagney and Lacey, all straight. Susie Sue, also straight. Bush, straight.
Yeah, you Bush should expect Susie Sue. None of those surprise me. Lennox, I'll give you that. I'll give you that one.
But
that's the only one. Go on.
A lot of the synth pop, Spandau Ballet straight, Duran Duran straight, Ultravox was straight. All of them, pretty much. The only gay ones were Eraser, Culture Club, Bronski Beat, obviously.
Communards.
Yeah, same guy.
If Erasure weren't gay, you would have been shocked.
It wasn't. It was only Andy Bell from Erasure.
The lead singer, Erasure, not Clark. And then who else was gay? Obviously, Mark Almond was gay.
Gay as a window.
Freddie Mercury, obviously.
Tell you who wasn't gay, the Blue Nile. Have you listened to them yet?
I have considered them, Nick.
Scottish men reading books.
Now, unfortunately, they're not in the 100, right?
How dare you?
But Nick, under the new rules, in the next 100, let's say OMD were number 1, right? But 101, I will consider other OMD tracks, and if they don't have one strong enough, a new artist comes in. So that is the chance that Blue Nile will have, right? Let's say, I can't find another Wang Chung song that makes the grade. I reckon Wang Chung may have another one.
Blue Nile are almost too good for this game. I mean, like Stay and Tinseltown in the Rain on the same album, 1989. I mean, and it is. I don't know. Maybe it's not synth enough for your requirements.
I think they're both very. It's the energy in them.
Track from 1989 made it.
It's the energy in them. When you put the Blue Nile, I mean, I put out, Da 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 by Trio, and then you put out the Blue Nile stuff, and I watched it and I thought
that made the 100. That made the 100, Simon.
Yeah,
Trio made the 100. Yeah.
But I looked at the Blue Nile stuff that Nick recommended actually, and I thought actually these are much more mature pieces of art.
I told you it's too good. It's too good for this slop chart. I mean,
songs about relationships and real complexity.
Yeah, and look at the video of Stay as well. It's a really classy video.
Well done, great, very well done.
I mean, that's very smart. I mean, I told you, years off to read. The thing about Spandau Ballet, just going back to that as well, they did seem gay unless you talk to them. Then they're proper geezers, aren't they? They're like absolute geezers.
I mean, look at Kemp.
Yeah.
When he turned up in EastEnders, straight. No way. Anyway, let's carry on. Visage, Steve Strange's bi, I discovered. So he swung both ways. He also ran the club that they all went to. I didn't know. There's a lot of kind of 80s synth lore that I've learned. And the Pet Shop Boys were gay, obviously. So there were only 6 of them who were gay out of 30 different acts. So
Rob Halford from Judas Priest was gay. It turned out later. So.
Obviously, Boy George and Marilyn as well.
Yeah, I said Culture Club. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. There was another one as well. The guy who did Limahl, who did The Never-Ending Story. I think so. Really? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was a homo.
Wow. Okay.
The Never-Ending Story. That one. Yeah. Sorry, is Da Da Da? Is that like a sequel track to Do 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 by the Police?
No. It's a German minimalist synth track called. You see, look at Simon wrecking my obscure ones later on. He's already. That was one of my surprises to come.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Just another question about your sort of 100 things better than Madonna. Do they have to be British or
no,
anywhere,
any Jacko's in there somewhere.
okay.
Triple A loves Jacko, by the way. She's I mean, I've been playing the 80s songs in the car. She's like, I want that one again. I want Michael Jackson again. So she loves Jacko. She likes Don't You Want Me by Human League. That's her favorite. Then
Jacko. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, Bad was the first album I ever bought on cassette. My brother wanted it as well, but I'd already bought it, so he got Aha. Was it called Hunting High and Low? Which is still, whatever the album was called, which is still an incredible banger album. So he still did really well.
They're straight as well.
But kind of, yeah, they're straight. I mean, they're straight. They're more that kind of Aryan synth pop, aren't they? Where you think they're not. You don't need to think they're gay. You just think they're more like a lab experiment of Aryan perfection. But what about? I wanted to ask you. You worried about your Michael Jackson track would be too normie. And I was thinking you could pick like something like I don't know, Just Can't Stop Loving You, or Dirty Diana would be a little bit more.
I put it's smooth. I'll tell you, the track is Smooth Criminal.
Oh, you just went straight down the line.
And it has to stay because it's Triple A's second favorite of the list now. And her third favorite is a German track, which is coming up tomorrow. Don't want to spoil it, but
Kraftwerk.
It's not much more cheesy than Kraftwerk. So if you don't know it, when you see it,
Hasselhoff or Roxette.
No, it's more synthy than that. Okay. You'll know it when you see it. You'll know it. Yeah.
All right. Nights and Luftballons, surely.
No. No. That's coming. That is coming later, but it's much more German and cheesy than that.
Where are these listed, or like what's it for?
So, they're every 8 o'clock every morning. I post it on Twitter, and then some dude is tracking them on Spotify. So you have to just go to my feed at 8 a.m. Of course, you being an artiste, being a comedian, aren't up.
No, well, today I was weirdly, but I couldn't.
The one today was Wang Chung. It was Dance All Days, and the one yesterday was the Safety Dance, Men Without Hats. Day before it was Temptation, Heaven 17. So.
Nick, go to AA's Twitter and just turn on all notifications so that you see all of his tweets.
There's something weird about getting up at 8 a.m. just listening to synth pop at 8 in the morning.
I know, it just kind of gets you off to the day. Probably the easiest is to go on my media tab or go on the video tab, and then you'll see my videos and occasional 80s songs.
Yeah, I found them now.
All right. Let's carry on. We were talking about something. How do we get onto this?
Let's finish this now. Silence for the rest, no pausing. Let's grind it out.
All right.
There was panic, a terrified stampede. But some of these people were running into the next bombs.
Sorry to interrupt it again, but the Safety Dance should be reappropriated by the British right. Right. If you watch the video of Safety Dance, right, they're dressed as like in a medieval. They're going to May Day. There's a dwarf. There's kind of lots of iconography of British pagan festivals and things in that video, and it's quite a good song as well. So I reckon we should appropriate Safety Dance.
We counted at least 6 separate explosions.
Tony Blair and George Bush were faced by disaster. Iraq was imploding, while at home they were being accused of lying to their own people to justify the invasion. What they desperately needed was something that would show that the invasion was having a good effect in the Arab world. So they made an extraordinary decision. They turned for help to the man who they had always insisted was one of the world's most dangerous tyrants, Colonel Gaddafi.
Babyface turn for Gaddafi coming up.
Yeah.
And instead, they set out to make him their new best friend. It was going to be the highest achievement of perception management. A man who had been created by the West as a fake global supervillain was now going to be turned into a fake hero of democracy. And everyone, not just politicians, would become involved. public relations, academics, television presenters, spies, and even musicians were all going to help reinvent Colonel Gaddafi. It would show just how many people in the Western establishment had by now become the engineers of this fake world.
And you don't think they can do a flag op, Anon? You think, watching this, they can turn Gaddafi into a fake global supervillain, then turn him into a hero, and you don't think they can co-opt the flag thing? Come on.
It's the ultimate proof of Rick Rubin's claim: the world is fake, wrestling is real, the world is fake. Have you heard that?
Yeah,
He's absolutely correct about that, Rick Rubin. Sounds like he's been watching me and Rick Rubin.
Yeah, because Dominic Cummings quoted it as the wrestling's real, the news is fake. It's actually, I checked it, it's actually the world is fake, wrestling is real.
I think Rubin's credited with using kayfabe earliest, isn't he? Or is it...
No, that would be
Weinstein?
Anybody in pro wrestling.
Yeah, kayfabe's official wrestling term.
That would be like...
I mean, using it in the political sense, I mean. Or was that
I
Weinstein who used it in the political sense first? I can't remember.
I like to think it was me, Simon.
I think it was. In fact, I know it was. It says that in my new contractual obligation here, along with Nick getting top billing on Deepest Law. And then I have to say, please like and subscribe to nickdixon.net.
Yeah, that's
anything
and the
else
YouTube channel.
Anything else is revisionism.
exactly.
Do you guys remember this time, like when Gaddafi was sort of declared to be all right? It wasn't declared good, but yeah, this was sort of, I can't remember, like 2000. I don't know. It was late Blair. Was it like 2007ish? Something like that?
Roughly 2004 onwards, up to about 2007, and then Blair effectively wrote him a letter saying, thanks for all the help, Muammar, goodbye, and left him to be.
Now my friends are going to kill you.
Yeah,
to be killed in a very violent and painful manner, right?
I'm not actually joking. There was a letter from him that was like that. Yeah, there's quite a story about this.
I'm guessing Curtis comes onto this in a minute. I can't remember, but like the way I just first heard of this is Gaddafi has agreed to cancel his nuclear weapons program, or WMD's programs that I didn't know he had anyway and may not have had. But I just remember like Blair saying this is a real triumph, like, and kind of praising him, like guarded praise, but like praising him, saying this is very sensible statement, like, and all this, this lets you rejoin the family of nations or whatever. And I just remember that. But I think they're going a bit over the top. Like, I don't remember the public starting to think that Gaddafi was a good guy. It was like, at best, it was more like, oh, the politicians discovered that he was a danger. Now he's not a danger, sort of thing.
I think it felt more like the public were confused because Lockerbie had been pinned on Gaddafi, and people still had a sort of folk memory of the Libyan embassy siege where WPC Yvonne Fletcher was shot dead in 1984, and so he was sort of thoroughly embedded sufficiently at the level of public consciousness as the villain, and it was the switcheroo over Lockerbie where they changed it from suspecting the Syrians, like we saw Teddy Taylor last week, to then pinning it on Gaddafi. And then the perceptions sort of started to wobble a bit when you suddenly had Blair meeting him in his tent, and all this stuff looked kind of very, very sort of sudden and arbitrary. And there is a big top-down story around it. I mean, maybe I'll let the film run a bit and then talk about it.
Well, can I come in with one thing? It's not informed like your thing, Simon, but just as an anecdote, around this time, since you're saying it was around 2004, I was studying English literature and not massively following politics. And I insulted a girl on the course, and I used a word I've never used before or since. By total chance, I used the word daffy, right, meaning daft, probably and followed by a slightly nastier word. She thought I'd said Gaddafi, and it turned out that she was Libyan. And I thought she was Scottish because she sounded Scottish, and I thought she was Scottish, right? But she had Libyan origins. I had no idea she was Libyan. I don't think I even knew that Gaddafi was. So it was impossible for me to have made that insult. But she was 100% convinced I had said Gaddafi and then followed by Bint or something. And I had to convince her that it was actually impossible that I could have made the insult because I didn't know any of the relevant information. But you try and persuade a Libyan girl that you've just called her Daffy, which is a word that no one ever uses, when she's Libyan and she thinks you've said
Scots Libyan as well.
I know the chances
ultra
of that.
sensitivity.
But it
Wow.
does sound incredibly plausible that I wasn't saying that once you piece that together, right? But I had to convince her there was no way I was saying it. Anyway, that's my
I remember
contribution.
once I was walking around there, just like wandering around Inverness one day, and I just wandered into the Libyan quarter. It was strange. I made that up. It wasn't really. It was Stranraer, really, not Inverness. But
I see.
Ever since he had been accused of the Lockerbie bombing, Colonel Gaddafi had been a complete outcast. The West had imposed sanctions on Libya, and the economy was falling apart. But then suddenly, Tony Blair broke live into the BBC Evening News.
The Prime Minister, Tony Blair, is about to make a statement the BBC understands from Downing Street. It's of international...
Can I just say something in the interests of slight lesbian look? I've always thought she's a bit of all right, this one. Every time. She kind of reminds me of a lion in some way. Like a female lion. Yeah.
she's relatively conservative for a BBC, isn't she? She was.
Get her name now. What's her name?
Fiona Bruce.
Fiona Bruce.
She was a cross wearer. She insisted on wearing a cross at work, and I don't know. She made a point of doing so. Yeah.
As they go, she's a bit of all right. When you
said cross wearer, I thought you meant like cross dressing, but you mean she wore a Christian cross,
a necklace, Christian
wow.
necklace. Yeah.
Yeah,
although she's not wearing one of
that's
his,
basically like having a swastika tattoo at the BBC, isn't it?
Yeah.
Significance. He'll be making his statement at any moment. Now we can...
Didn't they spoof her as a kind of like wasn't there like a comedy thing where they made fun of her for being a bit kind of, Was
it Bo Selector? Is she one of
I
those?
don't remember who it was. I feel like it was Far Show. I don't know. Far Show was a bit early for her. I feel like she was spoofed and made fun of on some sort of comedy show.
I will say,
she's a really good-looking woman, though. You're right.
Yeah. But she did destroy Question Time. She and COVID destroyed Question Time. The post Dimbleby separated.
Yeah, Dimbleby required Question Time required Dimbleby.
Yeah.
I mean, election night really required Dimbleby too. Kind of been ruined as well.
Election night used to have Peter Snow. Did they get Dan Snow into it? Sorry, just the thought of Dan Snow just makes me laugh.
I think they did get him. Didn't they actually? Yeah. I think they actually did get Dan Snow in to do the...
Because that's what the BBC is, just a massive nepotism machine,
And then at some point they were like, "Oh, this dude is the lord of all stats." That John Curtis.
Yeah.
At some point, it's like all of the old faces went away, and it's like, this dude, he is God.
Yeah, he's every bit of psephology on TV now is John Curtis, and the newspapers and everything. Yeah, he's the only psephologist in the country.
They've got that character, and they have to find someone that looks the same, right? They have to. It's like, who can we get that looks like Peter Snow and could do a sort of conceivable swingometer? Oh, this guy, because we never heard of him. It's a good point. We'd never heard of him until about a year ago.
Yeah, that's true.
See pictures of him in Durham,
This evening,
Durham City. Here he is.
Colonel Gaddafi.
Do not interrupt the Dark Lord, Fiona. Thank you.
Has confirmed that Libya has in the past sought to develop weapons of mass destruction capabilities. Libya has now declared its intention to dismantle its weapons of mass destruction completely. This decision by Colonel Gaddafi is an historic one and a courageous one, and I applaud it.
Today in Tripoli, the leader of Libya, Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi, publicly confirmed his commitment to disclose and dismantle all weapons of mass destruction programs in his country.
Do you think Bush and Blair could have done a bit of a job selling that? I reckon their sell job wasn't that good, to be honest.
It was weird at the time. The news, when this news came through, it was like, okay, what? Like, where's this come from? It was really odd.
Yeah. Well, there were odd circumstances around the whole thing. I suppose I'll give my little spiel here. There's quite an interesting article I dug up from about 8 years ago that was in The Guardian. I'll post it after the stream. But essentially what happened is very shortly after September 11th, the CIA approached MI6 to talk about increasing the scope of rendition as a program, because they wanted to obviously get hold of Islamist militants around the world. And essentially, they'd been doing renditions in the 90s, but they really wanted to go global with it, this idea of kidnapping and interrogating people. And what was happening by about 2003 is their sensitivity was raised somewhat because of the Iraq War and the fact that there weren't any WMDs turning up. And so they decided they needed to establish closer alliances with intelligence services in the Middle East. And at the same time, after the Iraq War, Gaddafi was kind of crapping himself, thinking the US were going to come after him as well. And he was ringing around all his buddies in the Middle East, even rang up Berlusconi to sort of say, we've got to be able to sort of sit down and have a summit with the US. Otherwise, they're going to come in and stomp all over me. He was aware, again, that the blame had been pinned on him for things like Lockerbie and so on. And so what happened was there was a pretty direct relationship, literally, with the MI6 head of counterterrorism and the head of the Libyan Secret Service meeting up to discuss ways to, work together. And essentially, what sort of deal was struck was that the Libyans were wanting to sort of get at their opposition, people who were living, the dissidents who had been exiled living overseas. And, sorry, bit of a motorbike going past. And so what they did was they fed information back to Western intelligence services, who then also, as by way of return, accelerated rendition programs to pick up those dissidents in order to try and sort of track and choke off the flow of Islamist extremists. There was a group called the LIFG in Libya, Islamist rebels, and essentially what happened, an arrangement developed whereby Gaddafi essentially was able to send his own intelligence operative to the UK to track down the Libyan dissidents living in exile, and we and the Americans were effectively cooperating with rendition programs, which became very controversial. I mean, eventually there was questions to the head of MI6 and to Jack Straw later on. There was essentially a problem with breaking our own laws about kidnapping people. That was difficult for the secret services, and so they tried all kinds of arrangements to keep this hidden out of sight. And this article, which came out about a year after hypernormalization, explains quite a bit more about it. But there was a suspicion that Gaddafi was still trying to develop weapons programs. He had actually a pretty weak chemical weapons program, but his nuclear program had been going since the 70s, trying to obtain enriched uranium and get it into rockets. This is the stuff, if you remember from All Watched Over by Machines of Loving Grace, there was the OTRAG, the East German rocket company, who came and tried to develop missile systems. And that kind of just, 20, 30 years it ran, them trying to get a sort of delivery system, but they never kind of got it together. But they did sort of make steps towards enriching uranium and having a quantity of that. So what was struck, this deal, was essentially a sort of mutual sort of assistance deal, and part of it also involved the Western intelligence services, the MI6 in particular, going to the Libyans eventually and saying, well, actually, we know you are trying to develop some uranium enrichment. And eventually Gaddafi had to kind of accede and let them have what they want. And he said, okay, what do you want? And really it was to say publicly, we're going to sort of abandon any weapons programs here. And the announcements you saw there with Blair and Bush, Gaddafi was scheduled to do a sort of simultaneous announcement in Libya on the television at the same time, but the story is apparently he deferred doing it because he wanted to watch the football. That was literally the excuse he had.
Very Maya Tuzi.
Yeah. But interesting story. And as I say, I'll post the article afterwards. But there was a lot of sneaky business on the part of the Western allies, and essentially this was going to be a bit of a coup, because the Iraq war wasn't turning anything up. So in order to keep, public opinion on the side of intervention, they had to sort of come up with, neutering Libya.
Now, we talk about chutzpah, right? Chutzpah. If you're Bush and Blair, you've already sold the WMD lie and invaded Iraq. faced down the largest protest in British history, if you're Blair. Basically got away with it, got re-elected. They both got re-elected. Bush in 2004, Blair in 2005. And now they're selling this bullshit. Beyond a certain point, they must start, like, it's been said of Blair a lot that he's got a god complex, right? But if you can get away with that sort of bullshit and basically put it off, you would start thinking, yeah, I'm pretty much am a kind of godlike, wouldn't you? You would start getting like kind of properly, idea, like kind of messianic ideas, I guess.
Yeah. It feels very much in the telling, especially in this particular article as well, that there was a certain level of compartmentalization, that the intelligence services were doing this stuff, very much opportunistically. And, as I say, a lot of shadiness going on in terms of, as I say, essentially these Libyan dissidents were being handed over. They were being rendered out of places like Thailand, just being, abducted, picked up, sent off to Tripoli, sent to prison, tortured. There was one guy, him and his pregnant wife were sort of hung up in chains and beaten. So, I'm not saying they were necessarily nice people, these Libyan dissidents in themselves, but we were very enthusiastically assisting with it. And MI6 were very keen to keep it absolutely hidden until some legal arrangements to make it look sort of okay in the UK were found. Eventually at the end, they got Libya to sign a memorandum of understanding that anyone who was sent back to Libya wouldn't be killed or tortured. But obviously, there was a bit of rough handling in terms of what happened to people, but largely they went to jail. And some of those rendees eventually ended up suing the UK government. And this is where the whole thing with Jack Straw and the MI6 guy, Alan, eventually faced charges, which the CPS decided not to prosecute. So there was something that looked pretty bad. Well, not in the public interest, or then some of these things were handed over to Westminster committees, which just never ended up reporting satisfactorily on them. This was sort of, happening in, as I say, the noughties, and the committee still hadn't had a report by about 2017. So it just got sort of kicked into the long grass.
Hard to believe that the CPS would treat Straw favourably just because he was a politician, but maybe. You mentioned the LIFG group that came out of Libya, like Islamic militants, right? Would they, by any chance, have included the Abedi family, like Salman Abedi and his father?
Don't know. Didn't look into that. That connection.
Because they were in Britain, the father and the son and the whole family, I think. They were in Britain because they had been part of a Islamic militant group that was a problem for Gaddafi, and the father had done some work for MI6. That's why they were given the right to live in Britain.
Yeah, that's highly possible. It was all under that. Yeah.
And so we're talking about renditions, but that makes me think of like Guantanamo Bay or secret places in the US or something, or secret sites, or maybe like Diego Garcia or something. I don't know. But also there's rendition just act as a cover for basically shipping future auxiliaries to be used against this or that dictator into Britain to live and be based in Britain and to work with MI6 and the military and stuff. I bet it does.
Well, difficult for me to attribute motive there, but essentially, yes, there was. The people who were rendered from other locations overseas where they were living back to Tripoli for Gaddafi to do what he wanted with them, and then. What was given to Gaddafi was a sweetener deal. Blair would contacted him in 2004. He visited Libya, and what was in the offing there was Blair essentially had said, thanks for all your help, and as a sign of respect, we're going to get Shell to do some oil exploration off the Libyan coast, and they signed a £110 million deal to do that. And funnily enough, the guy who was in MI6, who the chief of MI6, left his job shortly afterwards to join BP. So no connection there, and he got a knighthood as well.
And I'm pretty sure BP, not just Shell, BP pump a lot of oil in Libya. I think that is the case. So I just want to mention two things here. One was just that if people who want to read more about this, like the weird, strange convolutions and stuff that the intelligence services and the British state go through, Mark Curtis's book, I can't remember which, there's a couple of his books. Like, he's a hard leftist who's obsessed with British crimes and stuff, but his books are quite informative.
It's quite a good blog. I quoted it in the previous series, yeah.
yeah, like you find out some interesting stuff, and it just showed that like various people, like that Abu Hamza as well, like worked for MI6 at some point. Weirdly, like all these loads of people, and then yeah, quite a bit of it was about Libya, also Syria, Iraq, the origins of ISIS, and so on and so on.
Why do you guys have to be? Why do you guys have to be so cynical? That's my question. Why can't things just happen? You're also conspiratorial.
The other thing I was going to mention as well was the Gaddafi's sons. One of them had some involvement with the London School of Economics. I can't remember what it was. But it was like he owned a stake in it. I don't think that was the case, but yeah, like the sons and the Gaddafi family, especially the sons, started to become integrated into like European life to some extent. One of them, I think, I can't remember his name, but one of his sons,
Gaddafi.
I think it was Saif. Yeah. He bought a stake in one of the Italian football clubs, and I think he even played a bit, like got himself on the pitch for vanity probably, or was like maybe he was a decent footballer. I don't know, but like they started being sort of welcomed into Europe to some extent. Like Berlusconi, I remember, was like friendly with them. I think Italy has been involved with Libya for a long time anyway, because they kind of took it over for a while, and there was this thing, that Gaddafi said famously, everyone remembers, right? Gaddafi said, I am sort of the plug keeping Africa out of Europe. And if you destroy me, Africa just pours into Europe. And I guess Gaddafi was aware that most of the European leaders, like especially Sarkozy, it seems, but also David Cameron and stuff, wanted that. They wanted an excuse to go to kill him and to unload Africa into Europe. And like he was aware that there's all these forces waiting to make that happen if he's removed, and then he was removed from power, obviously, as if by design, as if that was the intended outcome.
Are you talking about this LSC, the global governance thing?
I think so.
It was NGA Gaddafi Foundation pledged to donate 1.5 million over 5 years to a research center. And then the LSE gave him a PhD, which currently allegations circulate that Gaddafi's thesis was ghostwritten and or plagiarized.
Yeah, that was a kind of setup that he would run the Gaddafi Foundation, which would essentially be a kind of oversight job to look at, human rights for, Libyan dissidents. So it would, distract from his function as a kind of link man into the West. I mean, he was quite relatively sort of fated by the sort of great and the good in Britain, who would, go off to his birthday parties and stuff like that. I should just add, don't feel too sorry for Saif Gaddafi. According to the Times in 2017, he's got access to about $30 billion.
Nice. And do you know what else he had access to? The LSE's students. So, and his dad. So the actual Gaddafi, the main bloke, addressed members of the school in the video link up in 2010, where he was addressed as brother leader and received an LSE cap previously given to Nelson Mandela. Another villain, though it doesn't say that in the piece. I've added that.
They consider him a hero. Yeah.
Still allowed to say that in liberal circles. Like you say that to Toby Young or something, they'll go mental. But Mandela, just clear villain, right? The only way he sustained himself in prison all those years was because of his hatred of white people. I've made that up, but I feel it's right.
No, you're right. You're right. His hatred was his nourishment. Yeah, his racial hatred.
One of the reasons why he's seen as one of the good ones, not only because our entire establishment is communist, but also because he said he wouldn't go Mugabe. Do you remember when Mugabe declared independence? He was very, very anti-white, and he did the land reforms, took the land off the farmers, caused the famine, blah blah blah. And Mandela said that he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't seek retribution from the white South Africans in the same way. So he's less racist than Mugabe, if you want to put it that way.
Interesting, but I did notice on Twitter, sorry, the little bit of obviously there's a backlash amongst parts of Twitter, but people, I think it was over the Lucy Conley thing, people was calling her a terrorist, and someone was saying like she's not a Mandela or something, and other people were replying, well, no, he's an actual terrorist, and it was stuff like that. And the amount of people that sort of had a kind of prepared to just attack Mandela, I was like, oh, people have been sitting on this because we've had to put up with so much Mandela bullshit for so many years. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, there's the kind of holy trinity of boomer truth icons, isn't there?
MLK,
Gandhi, Mandela.
all
They're kind
all
of
monsters.
they're kind of like the Holy Trinity, and then like somewhere above them is Churchill,
Lincoln,
well.
Roosevelt. Yeah.
Lincoln and Roosevelt.
Even Andrew Doyle has it in his book, and Andrew, is much smarter than your average liberal. Even though he does cite James Lindsay positively, unfortunately, he's no James Lindsay though. Andrew, he's much smarter and much more
He
fair.
must be written off as a human being.
Yeah, but he
sorry, I'm here.
But in the book, I was just reading his book, so I'm hoping to do a podcast with him. But he does mention MLK still as like just sort of like an automatic positive. I'm like, can we stop with all that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Colonel Gaddafi now became for West.
Out of it, while we're on that subject, who would you say is the best of the three of them for us? Gaddafi, not Gaddafi, MLK, Mandela, Gandhi. Who is the best of the three of those?
Gandhi, because India was at least his own country, and he was trying to fight for get the British out. I can sympathise with that from if I was Indian. So that's the most sympathy I could have for any of those three.
Do you know my favourite thing about Gandhi? The thing for which he was famous before the independence was something called the Salt March in 1930, and it was a big kind of hunger protest and thousands of people marching against a salt tax. Okay, people always bring it up when they're trying to break populist illusion, but here's the thing: the salt tax was never dropped, so it failed. The Salt March failed, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what I like about it. Anyway, go on, Nick. Who would you?
Well, do you know what? I'm getting a bit. I've got this terrible thing where in the middle of a stream, I always think no one's going to listen this far in, and I think about saying terrible things. So I've just been checking myself. I was going to say MLK for his treatment of prostitutes, but I was like, you can't. But I was going to say it even worse than that, and I was like, you can't say that, Nick, even in the middle of a stream when this is played back to you at the airport. Very tricky. I mean, MLK was a good speaker. So if you take that sort of aside from the agenda, he's got that. Gandhi, though, quite
good cadence. Yeah.
Good cadence, but I'm quite impressed with Gandhi's sort of methods were effective, weren't they? So again, if you strip that of sort of a content and you just say, what about the methods? His personal life was terrible. Mandela, I can't say because of the whole tires thing and his wife and just the communist agenda and anti-white agenda. I can't. It's very, very tricky. I think I'm going to have to go Gandhi as well because of his...
Gandhi did a couple of base things, like, for example, instituting Gandhinomics, when he said we need to return to the traditionalist methods of textile production in India, which, I mean, admittedly, it did lead to a famine. But on the plus side, that meant that it kept the population down, which is actually a good thing. And it was trad. So I would actually be prepared to defend Gandhinomics on Avolian grounds.
Okay, I'll go with Gandhi. They all treated women absolutely terribly if you look at it, except probably Mandela because he's probably too scared to because his wife was a terrorist. But I don't know, if you look at Gandhi, some of his relationships with women, if you can call them women, and then if you look at MLK, some of the stuff you hear about him, it's absolutely shocking, isn't it? Considering they're liberal icons.
I should mention that right at the start of the stream, somebody asked me what Evola would say about the timekeeping. I'm always a little bit late for these streams. And actually, he wouldn't care because Evola was Italian and had a very different attitude. He's got a whole essay about why leisure is aristocratic and based and so on, and why work is like the work of the bug man. This is like a key contradiction between Carlyle, who thinks that work is next to God, and if you're not prepared to work, you should be whipped.
Yeah,
and Evola the Med, who's like, yeah, look, you're just being played by capitalists. Chill out, smoke a pipe, pray or something.
I'm much more Carlyle as a Northern English Protestant.
As a Protestant work ethic, yeah.
Exactly, but I can see you going for the Evola aristocracy.
To be honest, I'm quite a workhorse though. I've got quite a bit of Protestant work ethic in me as well, and I can't I always have this dream of the rainy day that never comes, but when the actual rainy day comes and I've got a day off or something, I get very antsy. I can only get a couple of days of leisure. And I remember talking to Dan from the Lotus Eaters. He had a trading kind of background, and he said he'd made enough money to live the dream. He doesn't have to work. He's got tons of money, right? He had the pool, he had the thing, sitting in his pants playing video games all day, and he said like after about a month of that, he had to do something, like he can't just do nothing, you know.
Yeah.
So there's kind of there's a and in fact I even discussed this in my little known economics book, Defenders of Liberty. You'd like it, Horace, full of Austrian economics, right? Where I talk about the disutility of leisure. You know, there's the idea of the disutility of labor. There's also a disutility of leisure where people just can't handle doing nothing.
Yeah, you had that sort of laptop lifestyle, 4-hour work week dream, didn't you? Of people retiring at 30 or working from the beach. And it turns out people don't like it. They can't do it for very long. It's fascinating. I certainly can't. I can't take any days off now without guilt. Weirdly, with me, though, I didn't always have that. I was lazier as a young person. Maybe that's normal. When you're younger, you're sort of still thinking that you're going to have some exciting experience or something on a night out or something, or meet someone. Now it's just grinding out work in a kind of joyless...
It's worth mentioning, though, that Evola is a bit of a hypocrite on this topic, because even though he talks about the virtue of leisure and so on, as an aristocrat of soul, blah, 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 he wrote something like 30 books and I'm talking 30,000 articles or something ridiculous. Like, he never stopped at any point in his life. Even when, the famous story is that when he was bombed, when he had that bit of shrapnel explode on him, when they woke him up, his immediate response was, "Where's my monocle?" And then he was like, even in bed writing essays. He never stopped. So even he was a bit of a workhorse.
That is impressive. I'm known as a reasonable worker, but when you look at Toby Young, his work's absolutely insane. But I do think quality suffers. I think Carl's. I do think. Well, he just does like he put out. They put out a David Stark interview. He gets 4.7 thousand. Mine gets 250,000 because we do it properly. And I can say this because I was on the Weekly Skeptic and I was not appreciated, and he started the Skeptic while I was still on the Weekly Skeptic. And so I like Toby. I can say this because they did screw me there. But now I do think it's a higher level. But Carl is the most. You're impressive because the amount of books you've churned out. Carl is incredibly impressive with his productivity and its quality. And then talking about your Ebola, when you go back to Enoch Powell, his work ethic he was already the smartest guy basically in the world. And then his work ethic, Oxford, he was up at 5 every day and working for just, hours and hours and hours, 12 hours, 18 hours, just straight through. He even said he slightly regretted it because he didn't get the other things from Oxford, was it Cambridge? Cambridge, I think. But he didn't get the other things from it because he just grinded out the work to an insane level. So I don't quite have the Enoch level.
No.
I'm gonna go Foundations of Shakespeare on this. Henry IV, Part 1. If all the year were plain holiday, to sport would be as tedious as to work.
Nice. I'm gonna counter that with the Dandy Warhols. Every day should be a holiday. Do you remember that?
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
AA must remember that, right? Dandy Warhols.
I do. Was the Dandy Warhols? No, that was a different band. I was thinking one of those bands is Bob Dylan's son. I think that's a different.
That's the Wallflowers.
That's the Wallflowers. That's it.
Jacob Dylan, named after the Dylan song Wallflower. See, now you're entering my world.
Wow, we should do a music stream one day, Nick.
Just all music. That's the topic.
Yeah, well, I've got a music video. I'm actually a bit nervous for it. Whenever I step out of my politics comfort zone, people moan. But I've learned that there's on YouTube. This is another thing, Nick. There's a little. If you keep on going down, there are different categories you can put the video in. So that Madonna video, I put it in the music category, and I didn't have anybody moaning that it wasn't politics because it came up in the music feed. So mainly music fans watched it.
That's within YouTube. It's not a separate tab on your thing, but it's within their settings.
Within YouTube, if you keep on scrolling down, there are different categories. There's like how to and style is one of them. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because mine are news and politics. Yeah. No, I do know the categories. But you're stuck. You were saying you were stuck, and every time you go out of it, it doesn't do well, or it gets a tap. But you just think it was in the wrong category. I
think you can get away with the odd one. I'm starting to get culture back on the channel in a way. I do have the culture channel, but I don't know. It's just the way the week works. It just doesn't work out. The side projects always kind of get left to the side, unfortunately. How it is, Nick. We're all busy, right? So
I'll just say the only Dandy Warhol song I remember is Bohemian Like You, so because that was a catchy.
That's their biggest hit. But the other biggest hit was Every Day Should Be a Holiday.
Yeah.
I saw them at Reading. Like I was at the Reading Festival, and they were the first or second band on the day. They were all right, actually. I thought they were going to be rubbish because it's kind of like a bit ironic, isn't it? Like heroin is so passive. It's like what?
Oh yeah, that's their biggest song. I tell her like that is their biggest song. And
that's the same one.
What should be a junkie? Oh,
it's a different one, is it? Sorry, yeah, Bohemian.
No,
I thought, is that
yeah,
two
that is a
different
different
songs?
one.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, that's why they were all right because they had two good songs. Yeah.
Well, they had three. It sounds like. Not if you were the last junkie
That's
on the
three
earth.
better than Madonna.
Do you know what? They also had that documentary. Do you remember that documentary where it's them versus the Brian Jonestown Massacre? Is that their name? Remember that? So it's a documentary, and it's them versus the Brian Jonestown Massacre, and the Dandy Warhols like commercially more successful, but kind of sellouts. It's kind of like doing like an AA stream, and you're known as being on GB News, and you're like you feel a bit like, oh, I'm the normie. So it's a documentary. What's it called? I'll find what it's called. Have you ever seen that documentary? No. It's them and the Dandy Warhols, but Dandy Warhols are like, yeah, well, we're doing really well, sorry. And whereas Brian Johnson like, yeah, but we're the cool edgy ones. And Danny was like, yeah, it's called Dig with an exclamation mark, 2004.
And what links the two bands?
They're just mates. They know each other.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, so it's this awkward sort of, he's the genius, the Brian Jonestown guy, but he's not commercially as successful. And the Warhols are almost apologetic at how well they're doing. Very interesting dynamic.
Interesting.
That just came back into my head. This music crap comes back into my head. It's kind of like Anvil is another good documentary about music, but Dig is another good one. Nothing to do with Gaddafi, I'm afraid.
Do you think musicians get like beyond a certain level? Doesn't really matter how well you do, or do they really care about it? Like, oh, you've had 4 number ones recently. I haven't charted for like the past 20 years. Or does it not matter? I can imagine that after a certain level, it doesn't matter.
Well, if you've had some success, but I think they do care. Billy Corgan told an interesting thing. It just came to my head. Billy Corgan, you think about how hard it is to actually make it in music. He talked about that on Rogan. Like the tiny percentage of people actually make it in music is it's incredibly low if you think about it. If you don't, instead of just being a one-hit wonder, someone like Billy Corgan is incredibly rare. He has a thing though. Apparently, people come up to him and they say, "Yeah, I really like 1979. Yeah. Don't like any of your other stuff though." And he just goes, yeah, do I need to know that? And it's just like, people do that to me. They do that to you with comedy, do it to you with everything, don't they? Do it on YouTube comments. It's so weird how people are like that.
Oh, anyway. I'm not going to watch this video, eh? Oh, well, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, it's really
what the fuck am I meant to do about it? You know, you don't need to tell me. You know, oh, I'm going to go walk my dog now. Oh, good for you, mate. You know,
shit testing, essentially feminine relationship to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A heroic figure. His decision to give up his weapons of mass destruction seemed to prove that the invasion of Iraq could transform the Middle East. And Tony Blair travelled to meet Gaddafi in his desert tent, to welcome him back into what one journalist called the community of civilized nations. But as in the past, nothing was what it seemed with Colonel Gaddafi.
I think Blair was just kind of lecturing Gaddafi on how to run the country. I think he still had he's written this book on leadership now. I think he just had all these ideas like swimming around his head, and he was just like, I realise you've been running the country for 30 years, Mohammed, but have you considered, doing it like this? This is the kind of wise.
Or do you think leadership. You got some tips from him? Is there a chapter in there? What I learned from Gaddafi.
Yeah, maybe this is where he's getting all his lessons.
In reality, Gaddafi did not really have the terrifying weapons of mass destruction that he was promising to destroy. His nuclear program had stuttered to a halt long ago and never produced anything dangerous. He had managed to buy some equipment on the black market, but his technicians had been unable to assemble it. His biological weapons were non-existent. All he had was some old mustard gas in leaking barrels. But now, he had to pretend to have a terrifying arsenal of weapons, and the West had to pretend that they had avoided another global threat. And then the made-up stories became even more complicated. As part of the deal, the West said that if Gaddafi admitted that Libya had done the Lockerbie bombing, then they would lift the sanctions. But many of those who had investigated Lockerbie were still convinced that Libya hadn't done it, that really it had been Syria. But Colonel Gaddafi confessed. His son Saif was interviewed about this confession. He said that his father was simply pretending that he had been behind the Lockerbie bombing to get the sanctions lifted, that new lies were being built on top of old lies to construct a completely make-believe world.
You have to accept, or you had to accept at that time, the responsibility, because you have to accept responsibilities, you have to pay compensation in order to get rid of the sanction.
Yeah, so basically, Gaddafi was like completely fake. The version of Gaddafi that anybody knows about, every single part of it is made up, basically. Apart from the fact he was the leader of Libya, obviously, but all the other details are just made up.
Yeah, he was kept in a holding position to be a whipping boy, while they couldn't, they had to change attention away from Syria because they needed them to give support in the first Gulf War.
When you say he was kept in a holding position to be a whipping boy, I hope both of those are metaphors.
Yeah, I'm mixing them up.
Sorry, do you say in the first Gulf War there, Simon? You mean the second?
The first Gulf War, they needed to have old man Assad on side.
Oh, Assad, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, my sound dropped. I had some technical problem again. Sorry, right, okay, carry on.
It means we did that not because we are convinced that we did it, but because to find an exit.
Someone's asking in the chat if Libyans are proper Arabs. I think they're pretty low on the old Glub ranking scale. I've got this book by John Baggot Glub here called A Brief History of the Arab Peoples or something like that. And it starts with basically like a ranking of like best to worst Arabs.
Literally an AA style ranking.
It's very autistic. And it's like, look, the ones from Saudi, they're the pure Arabs. They're the proper ones. And then like Glub has got like assessment of what they're like as people. He says the Syrians are quite kind of philosophical. The Palestinians are kind of romantic and poetic, but they're kind of useless as people. They're not very practical. And Libyans are like I seem to remember Libyans and Egyptians are way down there, basically black, according to Glub. So like too much admixture, too much deviation away from pure Arab, according to Glub. So
Gosh.
Yeah,
imagine the lost spreadsheets of John Baggot Glub. that we should never see.
Was he the same guy who was called Glub Pasha?
Yeah, he led the Trans-Jordanian army. And that was not a Jordanian army made up of trans soldiers. For the Zoomers in the chat, it was called Trans-Jordan for some reason.
As opposed to Cisjordan.
Yeah, and they're... as opposed
I'm
to
not joking. No, I'm not joking. That's true. That's true. No, the Romans used to speak of the Transalpine Gauls and the Cisalpine Gauls, the Gauls who would come their side of the Alps. It's the same. It means the other side of the Jordan River, doesn't it?
And he actually did a really remarkable job of making the Jordanian army pretty decent. They actually performed well. They're the only Arab army who performed well in the 1948 war with Israel. They even took a couple of battles and things. They performed really well. But then the problem is that Pasha Glub had too much power within Jordan. And the king in 1956 fired him, basically, sent him back to Blighty, where he wrote loads of books. So that's basically...
In North Africa produces some people who look like Europeans, like Zinedine Zidane looks pretty much just like a European man, maybe slightly.
He's Algerian, isn't he? Is that right?
Tunisian, I think. Like, he's Kabyle, ethnically Kabyle. And I don't know but I reckon they may have been people who were there before Arabs and others came, and they may have come from Europe before. I don't know, because they look very similar to European people. Zinedine Zidane could pass for a white man anywhere, right? I mean, pretty much.
Algerian descent, and his parents immigrated from Paris, from the village of Aguimone in the Berber-speaking region of Kabylie.
Is he like I
can't pronounce any of these words in northern Algeria.
Was he like pirate stock or something?
Yeah, it's probably
doesn't say.
A Barbary corsair.
a Berber merchant or something.
Interesting. He says, I have because you were asking about who's Arabic. I have an affinity with the Arabic world. I have it in my blood via my parents. I'm very proud of being French, but also very proud of having these roots and this Oh no, he says diversity at the end. That's a
No.
But I'm not at all vouching for the character of Zinedine Zidane. just to look at him, he looks
overrated. All that turning, all that clever turning he did. But you know, what are his actual
That was not overrated. Come on. He was fucking brilliant.
Outstanding player.
Although random memory. Do you remember when he was randomly sick that once during the World? Like, what was that? He just vomited on the pitch. Do you remember that?
No, I remember in the World Cup final just suddenly headbutting a guy.
The headbutt, yeah.
Which is cool.
But Zidane was brilliant. What irritated me about Zidane, and this is gonna now, if you want to get into autism, I hated the fact that he wore number 5. Because to me, 5 is a centre back, not an attacking midfielder, and like Zidane should be wearing 10, not 5, for Real.
That's it. Weirdly, I referenced from just your chat's going to hate this, but Rio Ferdinand when he came to United wanted 5, but Laurent Blanc had it, so he had to have number 6. But you're saying 5 is a centre back.
Yeah, and the classic.
Correct.
I mean, the
7 is a midfielder, 8 is a
was,
midfielder.
Was actually 4
6.
to be a central midfielder. The defensive midfielder was 4, and the more attacking one was 8. 9 and 10 up front, 7 on the right, 11 on the left, 2, 5, 6, and 3. That is how the classic numbers should go. And what happened? Unfortunately, I even used to have a Facebook group about this, saying restore traditional numbers in football. Because what broke me was when do you remember there was that player Zamorano? What was his name? Is that Zamorano?
Ivan Zamorano.
Ivan Zamorano, right? He couldn't have the number 9 when he went to Inter. I think Ronaldo had it. Fat Ronaldo had it. And so he managed to get his number as 1 + 8 on his back. And that really pissed me off. 1 + 8. And then it really went mental, and people had like number 99 and really stupid numbers, you know. And then you've got the who was that African striker, Guian, who wore number 3 up front, and fucking hell, come on, 3 as a left back. So I'm very much a numbers traditionalist. But
no, you reminded me of it when the squad numbers came in. It was a big thing. You're like 27, get lost. Like it was horrible. No, I do remember now. It was a horrible.
And
thing.
even within squad numbers, I like certain like I like the fact that United typically had number 16 as a central midfield.
Yeah,
Keane, but then they kept that on for a bit afterwards.
Yeah.
So a lot of central midfielders had the number 16, and like I don't know, sub defender is number 12, something like that. All of these things were good, you know.
But do you know what's interesting, though, not to your audience, is that the numbers have come back because of tactics. Everyone now talks about tactics, actually more than they did when I was younger. It's become an internet obsession. So they always talk about who's the 8, who's the 9, who's the 10 in this, who's a 9. So they use them all the time in tactics, even though you don't have the literal numbers anymore. But you're right, we should still return to it.
Simon, do you find that even by the standards of football chat, this is like really, really boring? Like just
this is torture. This is torture.
Do you know what? Someone commented last week that I was just naturally funny without trying. So I thought this week I'll not try, and it turns out I do need to try a bit. Otherwise, I'll just talk about football. Last thing then on that, and then I'll never mention it again. Is that did you know that during the half-time once Rio Ferdinand suddenly smelt smoke? He's like, "What the heck's going on?" He went to the loo. Barthez and Laurent Blanc were smoking in the toilets at half-time in the Premier League playing for Man United. I just want to say it.
The typical image of Blanc when he was there was with the fag in his mouth, kind of, you know, hanging out at the back.
Very funny.
Anyway, let's carry. I tell you, last thing I'll say on this: the South American teams, it winds me up. They always play 3 as a centre back. They always do their numbers like literally 2, 3, 4, 5 across the back like that, with 6 as the left back. Winds me up. I hate it. Anyway, let's carry on.
It out of this nightmare.
So what you're saying is that you accept responsibility, but you're not admitting that you did it.
Yes.
And this is all a sham, you're saying, just to get sanctions over with so that you can start normal diplomatic relations with the West.
Okay. What's wrong with that?
It's a very cynical way to behave as a country, isn't it? Many people would say.
First of all, I mean, the Americans, they told us to write that letter. They told us to pay compensation. And then they opened their embassies and they restored the relation and they came to us. It was their game, not our game.
That's great, thank you. Does the leader know there's a picture on the television? Or you can tell him? Oh, good, thank you.
Public relations companies then came to Libya to do what they called reframing the narrative. One firm was paid $3 million to turn Gaddafi into what they described as a modern world.
Hi in the chat, 6 should be a centre-back, not a DM. 4 is the DM. Albertini 4, Baresi 6. Sorry.
Thinker.
I'll pause a second. I just wanted to say, not that I'm sure everyone noticed, but what a strange thing that while, at the very time that Blair and Bush and everyone are claiming a victory here, Gaddafi's son is telling everyone this is not what it claims to be. We're just doing this because it gets us access, right? What a peculiar thing that the kayfabe is. Yeah, the kayfabe is dispelled as it's cast.
The thing is, one of the weirdest things about our media is that stuff that foreign leaders say is basically irrelevant. And you notice this, if you have a look at the Russian war, right, the Russia-Ukraine thing, actual statements made by Putin or Lavrov or whatever don't actually matter. They might as well not say anything because it's just not reported, or it's just not important at all.
Yeah.
Or,
that's why Tucker or Oliver Stone have to do interviews with them. Yeah.
Yeah, or with the Iranian leadership. I mean, the Ayatollah's on Twitter every day saying stuff, but it's just not it doesn't matter what he says. Yeah. And that's one of the strangest and most interesting and total things about our system is that the actual statements of anyone else don't matter at all. Completely insular way of being.
Okay, we're going in 10.
They did this by bringing other famous world thinkers and TV presenters out to Libya to meet the colonel and discuss his theories.
Hello and welcome to Libya in the Global Age, a conversation with Muammar Gaddafi. But first, let's get the story so far of Libya.
One world thinker.
Sorry to pause it again, but do you remember Frost in this period was kind of brought back as an elder statesman, as a kind of really senior, he fronted a pile of shows around this time.
Yeah, through the keyhole was a big one.
No. I was saying after Through the Keyhole, he was kind of brought back as a kind of really serious journalist.
And he fronted Through the Keyhole again, yeah.
And he fronted a pile of serious news shows.
Yeah,
it's fairly late on, actually. I think even into the 2010s, whenever he died.
Yeah,
true.
2013
he was doing it all the way up to his death. But me and Simon did this stream that was taken down cruelly by ITV, and people keep asking me for it. But if I put it up on my Substack, apparently my whole page can get zapped. But it was Frost and Enoch Powell, and what we learned was just what an absolute regime shill stooge he was at that time. Just appalling leftist talking points against this great man. And it's sort of perfect that he's there talking to Gaff. It's like, who can we get? Or to wheel out Frost, the guy that was trying to make Powell look bad and was there to make Nixon look bad. He gets smoked every time by these people, but somehow they just keep wheeling him out and pretending in movies later on that he won. As Norm Macdonald, who you haven't watched, always said Nixon actually beat Frost, but the movie makes it look like Frost won. And we watched Powell, and we found that Powell absolutely smoked this fool.
Yeah, I know someone who knew him in a business relationship, and he was, as we discussed on that stream, he was just kind of empty and greedy, essentially, for money. He was paid £57,000 to do this particular gig. The other guy on the table, Anthony Giddens, who is someone who advised Blair on the Third Way, he was paid £41,000. This was all set up by a sort of a strategic consultancy called the Monitor Group, which was started by 6 business guys from Harvard Business School in the early 80s. And it was a kind of voodoo that was operating, from the 80s into the 90s, that you needed these kinds of, I think it was the sort of era when companies were going through this idea of these profound strategic visions. and they would have people like Monitor come in and essentially try to rework their thinking, almost their philosophy at some level. And what Monitor did was a whole program to rehabilitate Gaddafi as a quote, a thinker and an intellectual. And this went on between about 2006, 2009. And so there was a whole thing that they set up. They were very secretive, Monitor Group, but it's not unlike the Congress for Cultural Freedom setup that AA's talked about previously. When Gaddafi was overthrown, the sort of briefing papers that Monitor put together for their intervention were found, in a government office, and they were released. The actual PDF is online, and it gives you a breakdown of their approach and the people that they engaged to go over and help rehabilitate Gaddafi. You see this guy, as I say, Anthony Giddens, and Curtis is going to mention him in a moment. He made a couple of visits to Libya, one the year before this was filmed, and then this visit in 2007. I've actually tried to find the actual footage of this whole show, and a bit like our Powell Street, it's been wiped from the internet. You can't find it anywhere. You can find a couple of articles referring to it, but strangely, you would think as a historical document, the conversation with Gaddafi would be out there, but you can't get hold of it. But interesting things about some of the people who were associated with this project were put into this briefing document that Monitor did. And this guy Giddens in particular, one of the notes under his entry, it talks about him. He was an eminent sociologist, really, and he helped, as I say, Blair develop the third way. One of the notes about him is it says he regularly plays tennis with George Soros, and they are known to have discussed Libya a number of times. Other people who were invited out there to Libya, Francis Fukuyama, Nicholas Negroponte, various other sort of esteemed people, a guy called Bernard Lewis, very esteemed post-war historian of the Middle East. David Frost obviously was annexed for this particular project. And there were a host of people, including Robert Putnam, who were sort of in the background, as kind of advisory, figures during this whole sort of farrago. But essentially, Monitor Group had quite a lot of money. I couldn't establish anything like the sort of intelligence ties that you had with the Congress for Cultural Freedom. But again, it was setting up, a whole load of PR to bring Gaddafi back into the fold in this sort of.
Nicholas Negroponte, is that the son of John Negroponte? I could look it up, related. But John Negroponte was like somewhat similar to like Elliot Abrams type figure, I think, like maybe based in the State Department of the US, but a regime change guy and a liar, basically. And Bernard Lewis, I mean, he pops up in loads of stuff. He lived to a very old age, right? He lived to about 100, I think. Died maybe 10 years ago, stuff like that. And he was absolutely hated by the left, like the anti-imperialist left, and anyone sympathetic to Islam, because he was Jewish background himself, but he was like very much a Zionist, and more than that. I mean, he seemed to be like a state. I don't know. He seemed to be a sort of state philosopher in Britain. Like I'm pretty sure he was in with the intelligence services, and God knows, I don't know how it all works. Academics and the state, but it does. He was in the tent sort of thing. Bernard Lewis, I'm sure he was. He was friends with all the most rich and powerful people. And you say there was some like Giddens is a close friend of George Soros, playing tennis.
Yeah, seems to be. Yeah, I mean, he made some interesting comments about when he went and met Gaddafi. He wrote a little article called "My Chat with the Colonel," and just a brief excerpt from it. He said Gaddafi cut an imposing figure, clad in a gold-color robe, and he began by attacking multi-party democracy, which he sees as a sham. What kind of democracy is it, he asked, where a party with 40% or less of the votes rules in the name of everyone? I have no time for that argument, I said. This is Giddens. And I said so. It is just not true that multi-party democracy doesn't have a popular mandate in Western countries. More than 95% of people in such societies agree that they want to live in such a democracy. In Libya, which is a nice idea in principle, self-rule through a plethora of people's committees works out quite differently in practice. This is Gaddafi's third international theory of, essentially almost like a series of Soviet-style committees and people's assemblies that all feed upwards into him as the ultimate arbitrator of power.
So what you're saying is that Giddens was very dishonest.
Pretty much. He thought Libya could become the Norway of North Africa. That was his vision.
I'm sure
He
I've come
a social
across him.
democracy.
I feel like I've come across Giddens in my work somewhere.
Yeah.
I have to double check, but the name is really familiar to me. So.
Bit of a slippery one.
He was like, he was like a selected philosopher to just basically provide like an intellectual spine to this sort of twaddle that Blair said day to day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing of him at the time. Like I was studying politics at the time when Blair came to power, I think. And Giddens was mentioned a lot in 97, 98 sort of time. Like our philosophy is expressed by Anthony Giddens. The third way is meaningless, though. I mean, the National Front had a third way or third, I'm aware of third positionism, but they also used the term third. There was a third way party that split off from the National Front. They leafleted my area.
And wasn't Gaddafi's thing called the fourth way? So
the third international theory.
Oh, the third theory. Okay.
That was usually referred to
It's
the
all-
third
it's all the
universal
idea-
theory. The Green
The
Book.
idea that capitalism and communism are both the problem, or capitalism and socialism are both problematic.
Yeah.
Hitler agreed, right? And
And so did Tony Blair.
Yeah, and Mussolini.
Tony Blair basically agrees with that too.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go.
Yeah, and Baathists as well, right? Baathism is similar.
Was called Lord Anthony Giddens. Coincidentally, he had a theory which he called the Third Way, which had inspired Tony Blair. Colonel Gaddafi's own theory was called the Third Universal Theory. Lord Giddens later wrote about his talks with the Libyan leader. Colonel Gaddafi likes my term the Third Way because his own political philosophy is a version of this idea. He makes many intelligent and perceptive points. I leave enlivened and encouraged.
After 40 years, the leader of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi.
And then Colonel Gaddafi achieved his lifelong dream. He was invited to address the United Nations. He spent almost 2 hours explaining his third universal theory, and also demanded an investigation into the shootings of President Kennedy and Martin Luther King. When he was in New York, Gaddafi was offered a tent, just like the one he had at home, in the gardens of a grand mansion. The man
I actually remember this. I remember this actually being in the news, but let's carry on.
who made the offer was Donald Trump.
Pause. Just before we go on, actually, I have to say, I've got to read out a few excerpts from his speech. I'll try and keep them brief, but there's several here where he was talking about looking at assassinations of leaders. He has a sort of plea to sort of find out who killed Patrice Lumumba back in the Congo. We know that MI6 helped with that. Who killed Dag Hammarskjöld, the UN Secretary General, whose plane went down in 1961. And then he says, then there is the assassination of United States President Kennedy in 1963. We want to know who killed him and why. There was somebody called Lee Harvey Oswald who was then killed by one Jack Ruby. Why did he kill him? Jack Ruby, an Israeli, killed Lee Harvey Oswald, who killed Kennedy. Why did this Israeli kill Kennedy's killer? Then Jack Ruby, the killer of Kennedy, died in mysterious circumstances before he could be tried. We must open the files. The whole world knows that Kennedy wanted to investigate the Israeli Dimona nuclear reactor. And he says a few other interesting things that are sort of very much, current to us now. He says in another section, why are Africans going to Europe? Why are Asians going to Europe? Why are Latin Americans going to Europe? It is because Europe colonized those peoples and stole the material and human resources of Africa, Asia, and Latin America, the oil, minerals, uranium, gold, and diamonds, fruit, vegetables, and livestock, and the people, and used them. Now, new generations of Asians, Latin Americans, and Africans are seeking to reclaim their stolen wealth, as they have the right to do. At the Libyan border, I recently stopped 1,000 African migrants headed for Europe. I asked them why they were going there. They told me it was to take back their stolen wealth, that they would not be leaving otherwise. Who can restore the wealth that was taken from us? If you decide to restore all of this wealth, there will be no more immigration from the Philippines, Latin America, Mauritius, and India. Let us have the wealth that was stolen from us. Africa deserves 777 trillion in compensation from the countries that colonized it. Africans will demand that amount, and if you do not give it to them, they will go to where you have taken those trillions of dollars. They have the right to do so. And yeah, just
777 trillion.
It was a curious figure, 777 trillion. Yeah, don't know how he worked that out. Another little section here. He says, today there is swine flu. Perhaps tomorrow there'll be fish flu, because sometimes we produce viruses by controlling them. It is a commercial business. Capitalist companies produce viruses so that they can generate and sell vaccinations. That is very shameful and poor ethics. Vaccinations and medicine should not be sold. In the Green Book, I maintain that medicines should not be sold or subject to commercialization. Medicines should be free of charge and vaccinations given free to children. But capitalist companies produce the viruses and vaccinations and want to make a profit. Why are they not free of charge? We should give them free of charge and not sell them. Remember, this is in 2009.
Interesting. So what you're saying is Gaddafi, in a strange way, ghost wrote the next 20 years of Western history, basically.
The last bit of his speech, he says, "We are cousins and of the same race. We want to live in peace." He's talking about the Israelis and the Arabs. He said the refugees should go back. And then he addresses the West. You are the ones who brought the Holocaust upon the Jews. You, not we, are the ones who burned them. We gave them refuge. We gave them safe haven during the Roman era and the Arab reign in Andalusia and during the rule of Hitler. You are the ones who poisoned them. You are the ones who annihilated them. We provided them with protection. You expelled them. Let us see the truth. We are not hostile. We are not enemies of the Jews. And one day the Jews will need the Arabs. At that point, Arabs will be the ones to give them protection, to save them, as we have done in the past. Look at what everybody else did to the Jews. Hitler is an example. You are the ones who hate the Jews, not us.
By the way, there's plenty of Jewish writers who agree with that, more or less. I haven't heard them praising Gaddafi or Libya or Arabs in general, but they strongly praise certain Muslim places, especially the Ottoman Empire. They say that was a relative paradise for Jews.
Well, I have to say, if the plan was, if things go tits up in the West, they'll have the Arabs look after them. They have screwed that plan up for the next 100 years, I would suggest. That is not happening. That's not going to happen now.
Not so viable.
No. It's going to have to be. It's going to have to be like the West forever, I'm afraid, or at least for the foreseeable. I can't say the Chinese agree into that because they're very much like the same sort of people in a way. You can't kid a kidder, as they say. If you read Thomas Sowell on middlemen minorities, the Chinese are basically like exactly the same in their methods. So you can't do that. That's like having two like the same sides of the battery. It's going to bounce off each other. It's not going to work. It needs to be different. So it's going to have to be the West for the next 100 years as well.
Did you notice that when he was making that speech, I assume that was at the General Assembly where that sort of stuff goes down, goes down very well. Do you notice he was wearing like a black Africa amulet sort of thing?
Yeah. Brooch.
Yeah, because he was a Pan-Africanist, wasn't he? He wanted to be sort of the leader of Africa.
Yes, there was a kind of African League. I can't remember what it was formerly called, but yeah, he was always constantly sticking on Africa badges.
You know, Pan-Africanism, it's going to sound like a weird question. Would the Sub-Saharans accept Gaddafi as their leader? Or would they just be like, you're not black, mate, you're an Arab, so that's not going to work? Like a serious question. Or do they actually go along with it and be like, yeah, it's all one Africa? Anyone know?
No idea. There's all I can say about that is that I know that among the black world, there is some awareness that like Arab ownership of black Africa, or the parts that they do own, historically has been catastrophic for the blacks.
It still goes on in what's that place in West Africa where they've still got like a really segregated society in slavery, de facto slavery.
Mauritania.
Mauritania. I mean, it's still basically the more Araby ones or the lighter ones own the darker ones as slaves in some of those areas. Like today, in 2025.
And I mean, across like the Roman Empire or slavery in the USA or whatever, there was, a range of outcomes. You could be whipped to death, anywhere up to full manumission or even leading armies in some cases. But under the Arabs, slavery meant usually castration immediately and just work to death and all sorts of torture and stuff. Just appalling. And just some black nationalists and black identitarians are aware of that. So whatever African Union ever comes about, I mean, it's it's been talked about for 80 years now. If that ever comes about, they're going to have to get over that.
There's no concept. There's no concept of Arab guilt, is there? In the same way, there's no they just don't care, do they?
No, that's all.
or Ottoman guilt. There's no Turkish guilt complex either,
or Mongol guilt. Mongols
or Persian guilt. That doesn't exist either.
The only people in the whole world. This is what Kevin MacDonald's last book was about. The only people in the whole world who come up with ideas of collective guilt for whatever. It's just left-wing white people. That's it. That's the only people in the world. Everyone else is just proud of what they did, whether it's barbaric or not.
So I was saying this in a weird way. So I said, got a bit of backlash for it, but Greta Thunberg going on this basically suicidal mission to Gaza is actually one of the whitest things you could possibly do. Because if you have a look in history, white people have always done mental missions in the name of universal law and such things. I mean, what are the Crusades about? I mean, you know what I mean? You could say, well, she's doing it for another people or whatever, but this is when Spengler talks about Faustianism, that's what he's talking about, doing crazy things in the name of a universal abstract as being the essence of European man.
She's really in the tradition of the great aristocrats that built the empire.
She's kind of Gregory the Seventh reincarnate as a leftist SJW or something.
I really strongly recommend to everyone MacDonald's book, Kevin MacDonald. I think it's Individualism and the Western Liberal Tradition. It's fairly long. It's not the easiest book to read, but worth it. Absolutely worth it. Is illuminating to a T. It's when I first heard the term virtue signaling maybe 10 years ago or something, I was like, oh yeah, that's sort of a daft lefty thing. No, it goes right, understanding why people signal virtue and all the lengths they go to, putting your own life at risk to sail over to a nation, try and save them, and they don't even know who you are. Things like that. It goes right to the heart of our evolution.
This is the whole Faustian thing, though. It's oh, we're going to go to the moon. What for? Just because. I want to, I don't know, find the North Pole or source of the Nile. What for? Oh, just why not? Nobody else does this sort of thing. It's kind of crazy quest idea,
Remember, my references were a bit more lowbrow than Horace's, but remember that Jasper Carrot routine about why do you ask people, mountain climbers, why do they do it? Because it's there. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
he's saying they go
exactly,
because it's there.
Exactly, that is the exact idea. Jasper, filled with the Faustian spirit, and of course his best mate was Jesus. So, actual Jesus, the real Jesus.
Who? Jasper Carrot.
Robert. Remember, Robert Powell was Jesus. When I picture Jesus, I still picture Robert Powell.
I just remember him from the Detectives, but okay.
Yeah, but also he was Jesus. You've never seen Robert Powell Jesus. He is the Jesus. Hold on a minute.
Zeffirelli's Jesus of Nazareth, 1978, I think.
Hold on.
Well, the best Jesus is Jim Caviezel, and then I think also of Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. Last Temptation,
Now he's made known for the meme. Something of a Jesus
this
myself.
Is the Jesus, serious.
But Robert
Come on. That's Jesus. That's the one. That's the.
Yeah.
I won't have any of this stuff that Jesus was black or really looked like he had curly hair or something. He looked like that.
He looked like that.
Exactly like this.
They've recreated him from the Shroud of Turin. That's what he looked like.
And the Shroud of Turin is exactly that. So anyway, and he was Jared's best mate. So.
You mentioned Franco Zeffirelli's Jesus. Do you know the relation between Zeffirelli and Wisnanaya?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
I do.
Yes.
If anyone,
the premiere was Zeffirelli's in Ambleside, where I'm from.
What that's a cinema or something.
We have a cinema called Zeffirelli's in Ambleside, and the Wibnell and I premiere was held there.
Congratulations on having an independent cinema, for one thing.
Thank you.
In my days of doing,
there's good pizza.
Nick was personally responsible for it.
In my days of doing, in my days of doing WWID, I ended up finding out quite a lot about especially the ones who did really well, or they kept on coming back because they kept on winning or getting to the quarterfinal or whatever. And the number of how can I say, the number of stars who got their start at the age of 16 or 15 or 14 by Zeffirelli was quite disturbing and dark. I'll just put it that way. It's just like, yeah, these girls were too young to be in that industry. And there was just like 4 or 5 of them, I seem to remember, like got their start under Zeffirelli way too young and clearly had, not had the best experiences growing up through the film industry. I'll just put it that way.
Oh, now you've ruined it. But
sorry for being like I'm a Me Too feminist, me.
That's our cinema that we were proud of until just then.
Anyway, let's carry on.
Tell you something else. What? I dealt with Gaddafi. What did I do with Gaddafi? You buried the lead. What'd you do? Excuse me. I rented him a piece of land. He paid me more for one night than the land was worth for the whole year or for 2 years. And then I didn't let him use the land. That's what we should be doing. Was that over in New Jersey? I don't want to use the word screw, but I screwed him. That's what we should be doing.
Shall we call it there?
Can do.
Or we could, it depends.
How much longer is there in the whole thing?
How much longer is there?
Yeah, I don't know from where we are here, but I was thinking today if we got a little bit past this.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. We're on Fergie time now. All right. Let's keep on going.
Yeah.
People in Britain and America now began to turn away from politics. The effects of the Iraq War had been very powerful. Not only did millions of people feel that they had been lied to over the weapons of mass destruction, but there was a deeper feeling that whatever they did or said had no effect. That despite the mass protests and the fears and the warnings, the war had happened anyway. Liberals, radicals, and a whole new generation of young people retreated. They turned instead to another world that was free of this hypocrisy and the corruption of politics. They went into cyberspace.
Pause, please. Nice bit of burial, I assume there.
It is.
Like, we did not like his characterization here is fucking. Like, what's he talking about? Like, we withdrew from politics into cyberspace. That's such a 90s word. And he's got the lawnmower, or is this Tron?
It looks a lot like Lawnmower Man, doesn't it? We went to watch the Lawnmower Man in cyberspace.
But I definitely spent a lot of the 2000s and 2010s online. But yeah, arguing about politics, calling politicians scumbags. It's not like we withdrew from politics.
Are you really?
Is that not withdrawing into cyberspace, though?
Yeah, are you really doing politics through online, Horace?
We looked at weird robots on the World Wide Web. I know what you mean. It's a little it's a bit lame.
I mostly went online and argued on tiny little forums where it was never going to reach anyone. But Twitter, no, it does have an effect. We do see stuff that we've said on Twitter start coming back to us from people in more powerful positions. Like, that is happening. Curtis is just a fucking weirdo, the way he describes it. It sounds a bit of awkward boomer.
But he has his narrative, Horace. You have to accept that films have a narrative and that you can obviously come up with an anecdotal counterexample, like a woman, by the way. That's what women do. Sorry.
He's one of the worst for that, though. He's one of the worst for bizarre summaries in his narrative, though. You're right.
Isn't it true, though, that talking about politics online is a surrogate activity in lieu of actual politics? So you're doing the cyber version of politics, which is a simulacra of actual politics. And as long as you're doing that, they're cool with it.
What's the real thing?
What Blair's doing?
Yeah, actual politics.
Bringing back ID cards.
But we would
everyone's will.
Millions of people would love to be able to get to either speak to the people in power or replace them, but they just feel like they can't, right? Like, Curtis always just says this is like a mood or like a psychological shift. It's like, no, we can't do anything about it. I will be Prime Minister if I can.
I used to work with our next Prime Minister in a small office close every day and only ever spoke to him once. Wasn't asked. But But in general, you're probably right.
Oh yeah, all right. Sorry, I'm not speaking for everyone.
I've got the
but,
wrong
like,
personality to take. I could otherwise someone else would have taken over by now. Go on.
Just that like he makes it sound like we became sort of apathetic or something. It's just nonsense. Like
I know he loves these sweeping statements, but we
It's
retreated
not-
to cyberspace.
It is kind of true that people switched off politics for a while. I go the high watermark. I agree with Nick. 2012 Olympics.
That's what I was thinking.
Fucking
2010 time, yeah. Like there's nothing. There's no. There's like
Beckham on the speedboat. I mean, did you watch the David Atherton video, where the dream of the current based protesters doing real politics, by the way, Horus, is basically just to get back to 2012.
Right.
Did you see
What's
it?
that, mate? What? Like what?
Watch
So
this.
I know.
Watch. Look.
I'm
I'm going to force you to watch this now. Horus.
It's AI slot.
Right, watch. This got over 10,000 likes on Twitter.
You know, back in America, we would shoot you if you took down our flag. You pussies should all wake up, raise your flag.
Is this real politics, Horus? Or this is literally AI generated vision of what we want as patriots in Britain. Watch this now. Watch this.
This is meant seriously. Wait.
Oh dear.
What?
Is it?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Keep watching.
Oh, fuck off.
Oh.
Oh, that's good. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Keep watching.
Just chuck them away. It's alright.
Remember the Olympics?
The fucking Olympics, yeah.
The Olympics, yeah. This makes me feel so proud. Literally, Tony Blair's Millennium Dome painted with the England flag by Mr. Bean. This is what we're all in it for.
Terrific.
Oh, please.
What? Anton, he's the most lefty symbol ever.
Oh, God, the worst queen ever.
Your patriotic protest.
That is unbelievably awful. I mean, I'll give you the red arrows and the St. George's Cross, but like, why is Paddington in there? Why is Mr. Bean and the Daniel Craig the most sort of pussy Bond in there? But yeah, it's one. You're right. I mean, Starmer keeps going about all his flags, and he loves the flag. And look at all my flags. It is a kind of like desperation just to get back to the Olympic era, just before everything completely.
That
collapsed.
wasn't shared by Keir Starmer. That was shared by your base David Atherton.
That's crazy that they can't see that that's a totally the wrong message on almost every front.
I'm going to go out on a limb and
more
say
than 10,000 more than 10,000 likes. There's your flag protest. There's your Operation Raise the Colours, patriots. Okay, you say, "Oh, I'm for this," and then they stick that there, and then it's like, "Okay, well, you're for this."
But
Anyway,
you're doing one of your trolling. You're doing your trolling thing, aren't you? I mean, like,
no. What I'm actually getting at. What I'm actually getting at is Curtis.
Atherton doesn't speak for these people. Like,
no, what I'm getting. Well, he does. He does because he's stuck.
No, he
himself
doesn't.
in front of
No, he
them.
doesn't. He's just some knob. He's just
he's
like,
stuck himself in front of them, and he's got 10,000 likes, which is more likes than he's got. The point is to come back to Curtis. Is that this virtual fucking online slop is standing in for politics? It's literally virtual politics standing in for politics.
You're saying that represents the race of colours.
Yeah, but that contention you're having with AA there about who is speaking for who is what Curtis is pointing to. It is the trap and containment and diffusion of political energy by the online. I mean, what Scrum and Evan called the endless conversation.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily undermines raise the colours. It just means that people are very prone to online slop and easily conned by AI.
No, it is raise the colours. It is raise the colours. Okay.
Well, there's a difference between a guy. I mean, I'm not saying.
Okay, well, let's watch this one.
How are we racist? We are not racist. We are one nation. We bleed together. We born together. We stand together. We go 100%. We unite together. Who's streets? Who's streets? Who's streets? Who's streets?
Right, now you're going to tell me this is not Operation Raise the Colours either, but it actually is.
Well, that one actually is. I mean, I said to you once I saw Annunziata v-Smog promote it, I did say to you, yeah, I knew it was suspect. You're right. You definitely got points about Raise the Colours, but there is a bit of a difference between someone out there getting petrol bombed because he's put up the flag or whatever, or getting physically attacked, versus some AI slop, which is a different problem, which is people being far too. I mean, you mentioned Atton. I don't know him as a person, but he's put up false things about me that I wanted that were completely wrong, and I've corrected him underneath. It wasn't trying to have a go at me, but like things I said on GB, and he's put that I've said the exact opposite in the. So I've said David actually said the exact opposite, and he hasn't taken it down. So just his slop tendency is a little bit too high. That's all. Yeah, but I think that's separate from Raise the Colours, which may also be flawed as well. But
you got the wrong take on it in the first place, and you don't want to back down. Admit it.
No, I got the right to it. I mean, you will need to watch my video from earlier where the guy who set up the operation thingy wants to track and trace all of the flags and map them onto an online system so you can build a map of exactly where all the flags are and who put them up. What is that if not an intel operation, Horus?
Yeah, I know. Who is this guy? Is he?
He seems to be some sort of defense contractor. This was,
is he really okay? If the whole thing was kicked off by some guy who's working for the state, I completely retract what I said. I was wrong.
I'm not saying. I'm not even saying it was kicked off by these people. I'm saying that because it was indistinct, because it was ambiguous, because it was symbolic, it was always going to be co-opted by state actors, by people like this, by.
Everything's going to be.
They're always going to stick a clown nose on it. They're going to stick a clown nose on it and make you wear the clown nose every time if you acquiesce to these things.
But it's like being spat on or something. We just have to accept that. That's just going to happen. Some of us are going to go to prison. All sorts. Like co-optation is absolutely unavoidable, right? They will literally co-opt ethno-nationalism next. They will in a year or two. They'll find a way to co-opt that and everything else.
Well, they've done that in America already.
I think there is a point. I mean, when you compare it to something like the council tax protest, which obviously I'm not advocating at all, but there is a difference between specific aims, and I do understand that point. Organisation specific aims versus we're putting up some flags is much more vague. I'm not 100% against, maybe strongly against it, but I do see the case against. And I noticed people in the comments in our video were divided. Some were like, "Who's this miserable?" So and others were on board.
Every single thing that I said has come true in the space of a week. And I guess my question is, how many more go rounds are we going to have like this? When I'm going to flag up all of these things again, right? Come back to me in a year's time. There's the next kind of gay shit that goes on.
Yeah, I agree.
And we go through it all again and again.
You're like casually insulting people who are doing the right thing as well, though. Do you know what I mean? Like the people who, because this merges with the hotel protest, does it or does it not? I mean,
I don't think it does. I don't think it does. I think it takes the energy away from the hotel protest.
My whole experience of it was that, like, this came out of Epping. The flags thing started. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I thought that started in Epping, and it was thanks to the protest started by Callum Barker, who is a fucking hero. He's the Lion of Epping, right? We sort of gave him that name, but like. The people doing the hotel protests are doing a heroic thing. They are like
that is real. The Epping situation
they're causing a major problem for the state. That is
real. the
that was
flagship
something.
is something that's been co-opted.
Sorry, that was something one of the commenters pointed out on our video. They were saying, well, hang on, if you're not for protest, what about the protest that seemed to lead to the Epping Hotel getting closed down? And you have conceded that getting that hotel closed down, although it was then overturned, that was a sort of positive thing and a real thing, right? But didn't that come partly from protest?
I mean, it came from the actual council, from controlling the council.
But they were definitely inspired by the protest.
Yeah, the very same councillors, like who are claiming credit now, like Holly Whitbread, and I think the guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy who's been interviewed on by Nick Ferrari, you showed him AA on your video yesterday. Like the Tory councillors, they were supporting housing Afghans in Britain a couple of years ago. They've been forced to pretend to be against, and they're just making it about the hotel, not about the people being in the country. So they're just saying hotels are the wrong answer. Same thing the Tories say, same thing Labour says, right? But they've been forced into that position by these demonstrations. Like they were pro the hotels and everything until then, and they're snide about it, right? So I don't know. I can't remember why I said that. What was my point?
No, you're trying to make the point that actually the protest does seem to have led to real.
That's forcing them to take positions they don't want to take at council level and national government level.
If I'm going to be really blunt, I'm going to have to tread carefully. The thing that all these people actually respond to isn't protest. It's something more kinetic than that. Something more kinetic. That's why they had certain results in Ireland as well and elsewhere. It's also why in America, the let's just say the black community get away with all sorts of stuff because the authorities are kind of scared. And also in this country,
like kinetic AF.
Also in this country, there are certain ethnic communities have got a habit of just wrecking things or threatening violence or whatever.
Very kinetic.
And
they
our Fox elite are scared of that. They always kind of back away, or they come to a compromise, or they get scared. Whereas protests, placard protests, marching up and down the square, they can deal with all day long.
Not infinitely. There are.
I would say infinitely. Tony Blair anti-war protest, a million man march.
Can I comment? Obvious point is that those sort of protests can also lead to the other thing you were talking about, but is the obvious point. But anyway, go on.
Can I just come in on that? I'm going to just quote Curtis himself here to try and put this in perspective. I mean, what AA and Curtis. AA and I think we agree on is Curtis is talking about, a bigger, architecture of what covering events that is helping diffuse their political energy. I'll just hit you with this quote. This is from an interview he did in the FT. He said, "I think the question of our time is why did all these attempts to change the world fail? Why was hope not enough? Whether you agree with it or not, e.g. the events we're talking about. Because I think the answer highlights the problem at the heart of Western societies, that something much bigger is going on, and all three failures are symptoms of a system of power that works today in a much subtler way than power worked in the past. It has managed to seal much of the radicalism off from the other areas of society, not just, as Banksy pointed out, by isolating it in the world of radical art, but also by containing it in the world of social media. In the 4 years of the Trump administration, Trump and his liberal opponents became locked together in a feedback loop of mutual hatred and outrage that effectively sealed them off from the real world of power outside of their codependent pantomime. Trump's real role was as a distraction. And the others, Occupy, much of the Arab Spring, also got locked into the idea that somehow the new network systems underlying social media were more than just a way of bringing revolutionaries together. They believed that they could also be the model for the new alternative society that they so much wanted to create. But then again, they increasingly became detached from the complexity of the real world outside and the struggles of power changing it would involve.
Based, correct. Adam Curtis, correct.
And can I add one thing to bring it back to this documentary as well? Oh, sorry, Horace. I'll just quickly say is of course I do think protests are largely nonsense, and I've said it before, Polly, but the Iraq War protests were the ultimate proof of that. To bring it back to Blair, there was a total apathy following that march. 1 million people in London. Blair just completely ignores it, shrugs it off. You're like, okay, protests do nothing. So in general, I do agree with that. I mean, I also agree the one coming up in September also will do nothing. So I do broadly agree with that. But I suppose if the protest leads to the other situation you're talking about, which is more kinetic, and that does do something.
This was the whole debate that I was having with Sargon about the French Revolution, insurrection, riot, and protest. Right? the idea that placard protest leads to the other thing, is historically anachronistic. It's not like the French Revolution started out with placard protests. Excuse me, King Louis, we would like to march up and down outside the Bastille down with all this signs, right? Can we have your permission, please, Your Highness? It didn't work like that. It started with riots, and the riots then, they got organized, and there were elites involved, and then they started armed insurrections. That is a whole world away from protests. And if we ever get to the Putin section of this documentary, Simon, I don't know when it comes, you will actually see in this documentary how a government can actually fund their own protest as a way of containing it.
And this is one more thing I want to quote. And I actually quoted this on a previous stream. I think it was way back when we did Century of the Self or The Trap, but I'm going to hit it again because it's about that Iraq war march. And this is Curtis again. He says, what went wrong with New Labour, which I think is quite interesting, is that Blair got fed up with focus groups and started to do something off his own back, which was Iraq. It was almost like he got fed up and felt imprisoned by them. No one has ever explained to me why Blair went to war in Iraq, the question we were asking last week. My own personal theory is that he got so fed up with having to focus group everything that he just thought, oh, sod it, I'm going to do something off my own back. And then he discovered he could. Because the really interesting thing about that time, it is really odd. You have this obsession with focus group politics, which is that you have to ask people what they want, otherwise they will turn against you and you will lose power. Yet at the same time, you can decide to invade Iraq. 2 million people can come out on the streets of London. You go, fuck off. And they go, all right. And you go home. I mean, where is the power in society?
How many people did he say? 200,000?
He said 2 million.
2 million. 2 million. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I thought it was like a million, but 2 million. Yeah, that's exactly what happened, and that is fascinating. Blair invented the "you can just do things" meme.
Yes,
but that's what his book on leadership is. His book on leadership is literally just saying, leaders, you can just do things. Then tell the people what you've done, explain to them why it's a benefit, and carry on and do the next thing.
And Curtis is going to talk about this in the next section on Occupy, and we probably should leave it till next week. But he says that everybody became involved with the process of managerialism. And in a way, Occupy was another form of managerialism. But meanwhile, power is actually going on elsewhere. And Blair, at that point in Iraq, represents that pivot from going, well, I've got this managerial thing set up, but now I can just let that run on autopilot and I can go off and actually use real power.
Exactly. Capital L, leader power. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like I largely agree with you over Carl. I was just giving a potential flaw, but you've covered it. So, yeah. Elite theory for the win again.
I can observe the same as everyone that protests are usually ignored. And it's not the protest specifically, the assembling of people at various points that's forcing the government's hand to do anything. But they are obviously against it. They are dead against it. They are concerned by these protests. I don't know exactly why, but they're responding. They're trying to stop it. They're trying to. I don't know. It seems to be a problem.
Well, at least appear to stop it. And I'm not being conspiratorial and saying it's a performance necessarily, but it's part of that theory of dealing with conflict we've dealt with before. Where we talked about the way the IRA eventually they came to the security services who were pinning them down in Northern Ireland, and they said, "Look, we have to find a way out of this conflict." They came to the table and said, let's find a process by which everybody can get out without losing face.
Think about it, though, right? Last summer was Southport. This summer was flags. Which one do you think the government prefers?
Yeah, that's clear. So, yes, the flags could be a way of letting out energy from a Southport-style revolt.
They don't like it when things get violent, the government. They don't like it when things get kinetic.
There's two things. One thing is totally sorry. One thing is totally right that you say the government literally permits protests, and quite an interesting example of that is when they arrested the lady for having the Union Jack. But actually, and this is sort of kind of semantics, but it's because she had it outside of the protest zone. But that just shows when you're protesting in the zone, you're allowed. When you're out of the zone, suddenly it's illegal, which is kind of interesting. But then, what do you make of Justice Bean saying that we can't allow this because it'll encourage more protests, which kind of seemed like saying the quiet part out loud, unless that's a double bluff and they actually don't care about protests, but they couldn't control them seemed to be the worry.
I would say the Justice Bean decision and that whole thing was a major, major effort by the government and is totally not in. I think Machiavelli, if let's say we had the elite theory council, right? The Council of Elders. You got Schmidt, Machiavelli, Mosca, Pareto, and Michael's all sitting around the table giving advice like Civilization 2, right? Not one of them would say the Judge Bean decision was correct, right? Every single one of them would say that was a massive mistake. And I do actually think that the British government is playing with fire when they decided to do that. It was just kind of insane.
It was a massive mistake, but why did he say we don't want to encourage protest? If protests are so benign, why do you think he said this will only encourage more protests?
Well, I think what he was actually trying to say was the law of the land is not set by protest. The law of the land is set by the law, not like we can't set a precedent where we can't set a precedent where people protesting sets what happens, right? So and you're right. You're saying that what you should have said, what they should have done, really, is stuck by the decision as a means of keeping the peace. Right, but this judge with the government and Starmer are too anal. They're a little bit too anal in a way. Like if you actually listen to what Labour say, they want to do everything by the book. It's like being run by Arnold Rimmer or something, right? Because their plan, if you actually listen to what Labour say, they're like, look, we want to shut down all of the asylum hotels, period. We want to shut them all down and put all these people into military bases and warehouses and HMOs or whatever. They want to put them elsewhere. So the hotel issue goes away. But it must be done to an orderly timeline. It must be done according to this. We're not going to be rushed along by protests, blah, 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 blah. Right? So they're literally just saying, full force of the law, it must be done by the book, right? In a very bureaucratic, managerial way. And what I'm saying is, actually, they should have exercised what I think Blair would have done. They would have just exercised discretion to be like, look, we want this epic thing just to go away. All right, we'll carry on with the program, but just for this one, it would be wise to just give them this one, right, to prevent further chimp outs or whatever. Right. Instead, what they've done is they poured gasoline on the whole situation.
Yes, and you don't even lose your rule of law thing because it was a judge that decided that.
Exactly,
Yes,
they had
a conservative judge, but they had to overturn because they're such, as you say, sort of anal and so ideological in a way because it was a conservative judge and a sensible judge. Like, no, we have to overrule your judge with our judges. It's like, well, okay, you could have let us pretend that we had actual other judges who were relatively sensible, but they didn't even allow that.
Could I just intrude for a second in AA and ask you to have a look in the private chat and click on the Twitter link that's there? I think it's something you should announce.
Okay. Not the one by David Atherton.
No, the one above from me, from Iron Duke.
Okay. Oh, that is very sad. Okay. So the news is from Iron Duke that our friend, Lady of Shalott, has now passed. So that's very sad news. She was a mod on this channel, mother and a wife, really intelligent voice. She had her own channel and things, but we knew she wasn't well for quite a long time. She'd been quiet for quite a while, and now it's been confirmed that she has gone. So there we go.
Very sad. I was in DMs with her last year, I think, up to about January of this year. But as AA said, she had been unwell for some time and was in and out of hospital and then sort of went quiet about February. But would ask everybody just to say a prayer and remember her. Her name was actually Julia.
She seemed like a lovely person. AA, does this mean that we can't talk about the riots anymore? Is that
no, I think we can. I think in fact, I think she would have wanted us to talk about the riots. Among other things, she was very involved on the ground as well. I remember, especially during lockdown, she went to many on the ground activities. I seem to recall.
She seemed to have a lot of knowledge about Rotherham and the rape gang scandal as well. I think she said she'd worked with people involved.
She was an expert on the Smiths as well.
And on Northern Ireland. In fact, she would have loved my Bangers Better Than Madonna. She would have been all over that because she was also the #1 fan of AA Radio when I ran that. She was always the first one in the chat there. So, yeah. But yeah, so I think she would have wanted us to talk about, carry on talking about the riots for us. So let's
just on the point that they the regime didn't want the riots last year. Broadly, I agree, but there is this video, and it seems unmistakable as far as I can see. I mean, it's posted by David Atherton, but I saw it posted by other people, and it does appear to show. I can't see what else it can be. Someone emerging from the police lines. This is, I think, the first night of Southport, which was the first night of all of it. This is a pretty small scuffle. It went on for about an hour, not large numbers of people. But somebody emerges from the police line, starts a fight with one of the protesters who fights back against the cops, and then you've got a riot. And the person disappears back off behind the police lines. So it's like at least the police there wanted to start a fight. They did start a fight. One of their guys was...
Yeah, I think they're known for these sorts of tactics, though, aren't they? Like, we've seen
So it's like... There are occasions where the regime does want the people to start a riot. I don't know why, but they do.
Well, I think there was the whole... They said the thing is that they had their whole arc on that thing. They started that. They stuck a pile of people in jail. And do you remember... See, people forget these little details. Do you remember about a week later, Casey Hopkins, Douglas Murray, and a few of these other people had a whole list of dates, right? A whole list of dates. So there were going to be protests around the country. And when they actually came, these dates, nobody turned up, and it was the anti-racism march. Do you remember? And
because
every single newspaper ran the anti-race. So they must have had, when they saw this thing kicking off, they must have had a whole narrative script that they would run this script for the next 2 weeks, right? So the first thing they needed was the actual pretext to stick people in jail. Starmer comes out, calls them far right. Then you have the counter protest. Then you've got the front pages saying Britain's against racism. Bob's your uncle. Now, it was not a very good operation, I would say, but it basically ended up making most of the country hate Starmer to this day, right? But I think that's what they were going for. Very clumsily done. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the police started it without doubt. That sort of thing happened.
Yeah, I mean, at least those police on that day, I don't know whether the intention was to spark off more stuff around the country, but yeah, because remember on the day of the murders that triggered it all off, the day after, obviously Starmer said his very ill-judged comments, but there was also the local police chief, I think the chief constable of Cheshire Police or wherever covers Southport, maybe Lancashire, is it? Maybe Lancashire.
Mm-hmm.
But he made just the same sort of comments as Starmer, just like it's the only people actually angry about these crimes are far-right thugs and all this.
There must be guys who've been in the police, who riot police or whatever, who get trained in these sort of things. Because I've seen these tactics used so many times. Every once in a while, it kicks off in Spain with the Catalonian separatists, right? And every single time that comes out, the separatists say, "Look, the police started it. Look at this footage here. This police guy there. I've seen it happen with the Proud Boys in America." That they definitely have tactics, playbooks that they use, and it's really noticeable when they've got a different playbook, right? Like during BLM, it was take the knee, or they were running away. Do you remember that? They're literally running away. So they clearly had different orders on that occasion. Whereas the anti-lockdown protests, if you remember, the truncheons were full on that occasion. Brixton riots, poll tax riots, truncheons were out on those occasions. So yeah, there's definitely times where the truncheons are out and times where the truncheons are not out as well. So maybe, I mean, but we'd need actual police to explain why, why do they sometimes start it off? There must be a reason for it.
By the way, there's a breaking thing, and I can't confirm if it's true, that a 7th AFD candidate has died. I mean,
come on,
huge if true. I can't confirm.
Come on,
it's
7,
only on. It's on Twitter.
I will say that I've seen our buddy, the edgy platypus, who knows a lot more about German politics than us, say that, look, there is a statistical thing going on because these elections are massive, right? So there are 20,000 candidates, of which 7 have died.
Yeah, this guy was 80 as well. I've just found out.
So there is a kind of there could be a rational explanation. But when I was looking through it, it was like one of them died of suicide. I'm like, come on.
I know. The other one were heart things. Yeah, this one's 80. And like you say, it's a large election. Although, of course, in a country where there's literally a firewall, and especially it's called a brandmauer, isn't it? It's like a literal word they have where they keep them out. So it's not. You can see why people might go there. You know what I mean? Because they are openly. I suppose you might say, why bother with the conspiracy when they're openly keeping them out? And it's called the firewall.
It's definitely an eyebrow raiser, but in the interest of balance, there are people saying, well, look, this is a statistical kind of quirk. There are 20,000 people in like a time frame. There are going to be like 7 people who die, something like this, But I think it's my immediate response was like, what? Because they're all in the same area. They're not just all AFD. They're all in the same area as well.
I mean, in Britain, let alone Germany, I mean, Antifa do to some extent just work with the state and can. In Germany, especially, I've heard like they get away completely with like violent crimes, like serious assault, GBH, and probably attempted murder.
It's a bit of a leap from that to just like taking people out, though, isn't it?
Well, but the German security services is just, I mean, it's kind of the same people, isn't it? Like the intelligence services and Antifa, they have the same ideology. They know each other.
Has anyone checked if Hillary has visited Germany anytime recently?
I mean, reading the BBC report this morning on that the BBC literally went, "Oh, the police have said there's nothing suspicious, so that's it." That's it. That was their journalism. So it's like, okay, all right, have we got time for any more of this? We're 2 hours 40 in. We've got kind of.
We've done like 5 minutes of Curtis today. I swear.
Yeah. I've got my other podcast to do, but I don't want to ruin Simon's master plan. Though.
I think we should probably count it for today. And
well, we're on this bit of Lawnmower Man. We're on Lawnmower Man. So yeah. There are a couple of super chats.
I probably interrupted Curtis like mid-sentence. The next episode will start like halfway through a sentence about cyberspace.
Okay, Milo Clancy says it would be great if you could cover the short film The Elephant We'll Never Forget, an interesting piece on LT's hateful closure of London trams and the end of A Way of Life. Director was fired for it. Interesting. Mr. Sunshine was saying, are you aware of a BBC drama that Curtis produced last year called The Way? It's a fictional story about the Port Talbot Steelworks that turns a bit Civil War, cliche, but a bit timely, quite timely. Did you watch that, Simon?
I did, yeah. The first episode is quite good. It has a sort of woozy kind of courtesy atmosphere, but after that, I don't think his influence extended very far, to be honest. It just became a kind of tedious sort of agitprop thing for Michael Sheen. I mean, I don't know if it's not canonical, Curtis. Michael
Sheen's in a lot of stuff, isn't it? Didn't Michael Sheen play Frost?
Back
to,
indeed.
And he also played Brian Clough, didn't he?
Clough,
yeah.
He did a passion play. I went to see that in the cinema. It's the last film I saw in the cinema.
He did a passion play in Port Talbot where he modestly played Jesus, and the fun meme about this new show.
It'll never be the real Jesus. That's Robert Powell.
Robert Powell.
Yeah, Robert Powell's the actual Jesus, exactly.
But the fun meme about this new show is he has a character called the Welsh Catcher, who is somebody who has literally got like a cage on the back of the truck. He has to go around catching Welsh people because they're forbidden to come into England. So it's quite
Have you
amusing.
seen like Sheen's political expressions? He makes little speeches and sometimes or tweets stuff. He's a fucking idiot. Like it's ridiculous how dim celebrities are about politics.
Yeah, he sort of blends in my mind with David Tennant as a kind of slim actor saying stupid nonsense. They look kind of similar and they say similar nonsense.
I think Sheen is an excellent actor. I don't know about Tennant, but yeah, it's a shame. Like De Niro is a great actor, obviously, but what a bell end.
Yeah.
What a mook.
What a mook.
What a mook.
Okay.
Mean Streets reference there for Zoomers.
Yeah, well, there was a clip of a guy calling him a mook, which was pretty funny. It became a bit of a chat meme at one point. The Mighty Walk says, before the Arab expansion in 600 AD, North Africa, as well as Egypt, and most of the Berbers were Saharan, Neolithic African. Greeks made up 5 to 10%. Cringewalker said the Crusades were kind of a liberal crusade. What exactly? I mean, this is Spengler's whole point about like there's some like screw loose in Europeans where they just always wanting to do stuff for abstract principles. universal abstract principles in a way that other people just don't do. Piotr says real flag raising has not been tried. And the guy whose name is just a bunch of Chinese characters says, my condolences to the family. Please create a donation link for the family. Bless Julia. We help our own. Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to do that, I'll be happy to share it, obviously, in due course. Or if somebody does it afterwards, I'll put it in the show notes.
Could be a good idea to contact Iron Duke if you have a look on there.
Yeah, maybe Iron Duke.
Right. Yeah.
She was Aussie based, wasn't she?
She had moved over there. She'd lived partly, I think, in Yorkshire. There's apparently she might have been a school governor in Rotherham and knew a lot about what was going on there. And then I think she went off to Australia.
I seem to remember she was very knowledgeable about Northern Ireland as well.
Yeah.
I had her on for a stream about the Troubles once, she knew very knowledgeable about that topic. But it will be missed. Sad note on which to end today's show. Anybody, where can people find you, Nick?
Well, that is very sad. I didn't know, but I don't want to glibly move on to promoting after that, and I'm sorry for everyone that knew. People can find me on YouTube. NickDixon.net is my Substack. NJ Dixon on Twitter. Thank you.
Horace.
EternalHorace.substack.com. I'm just very slowly working on the next essay, but my older ones may be of interest.
Simon.
I don't think I need to say anything else other than please give up your thoughts for our late Lady of Shalott.
Absolutely. All right, folks. I'll be back tomorrow morning, where I think the video tomorrow is a video on 80s music. So check that out. I don't actually go into the songs tomorrow, but eventually I will actually start going through the list if people have enough interest. So yes, check that out. And thank you very much, friends. I reckon today was a record for least amount of Curtis got through. I'm blaming Nick mainly.
Well, I mean, I'm blaming you because the more I do this, I don't do GB, and this never ends. I keep thinking this will end and I'll go back to my life, but it never does.
Just stringing it out forever.
I'm the most pause happy of us, perhaps, but I
didn't pause once today. Notice I didn't pause once because I'm trying to get through the last stretch.
Nick, are you here just for hypernormalization? Because maybe we'll just keep stretching it out to keep you.
Well, it's like the Lenin body thing. We're replacing the actual tissue with football. We're sort of stripping out the flesh and.
Yeah, I don't pause, but I suppose I can do a terrible digression. So I need to get discipline. Next time, discipline, silence all the way. We grind through the film.
Just sit in silence and watch it. With no
the AA thing, stop talking, basically.
And occasionally Horus can pause it and just say, this is shit. And that's all we're
turning into early Unpopular Opinions. Do you remember where Unpopular Opinions started as a show where I would go through my unpopular opinions? In show 1, we got through like 50 opinions. After about 7 shows, we were down to like 1 or 2 per stream. And then in the end, 0 opinions. And then there were 0 opinions for like 10 seasons or something. So, maybe
I honestly had no idea. I thought that was just like a current affairs show. You just discussed.
No,
and I didn't even know either. So that's how detached it got from its original mission. Me and Horace both didn't know it even ever had opinion. And we doubt that that's even true. We're skeptical.
Look, I've still got the old spreadsheet, right? The old Unpopular Opinion spreadsheet, where we actually cover like which opinions, how many opinions we covered, how long the streams were, who was on the panels. Right, I mean, this is how
you should do another show called Autistic Opinions. I mean, this spreadsheet level is insane.
Yeah, it's all tracked. You can actually see.
I know this is normal to you, but just coming in as a normie.
How long? I mean, I didn't do that. This was kind of autists did this. You can see, there were so many. I don't know where D is on this.
On 100 times. Bloody hell.
Who was? British show was on 100.
Was at 100 times.
Yeah, and D overtook the British show eventually. Where is D on this? British did D did 187 streams, 60% appearance rating. 632 hours of streams. I did almost 1,000 hours on Popular Opinion.
I'm getting a lot of lols, which I think are from my autistic opinions joke. You don't get much from the panel, but the chat sometimes recognizes real. Sorry.
I leave it to the chat to respond because I know
fair.
That's their role.
All right, guys. Well, we laughed, eh? All right. Bye, everyone.
What goes on in this town is none of your business.
As long as I'm living here, it is.
Then maybe you shouldn't be living here!
Well, that's easily fixed.